start the meeting.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did everybody get a chance to look at the agenda?
I approve the agenda.
A motion for the approval?
Support.
My only
All in-
question, oh, sorry, just was, I see we were given a privacy policy. Is that something that's on the agenda in the
No.
discussion? Okay.
Nope,
Okay.
it's just something extra for you to read.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Yeah, okay, perfect. That was my only
Okay.
question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion approved. On to the minutes. Everybody get a chance to review the minutes before the meeting?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
I second. Support.
All those in
I
favor?
have a question on
Okay.
minutes, or it's a comment. Under old business last month, it was noted that the facilities committee was going to bring back a recommendation to this meeting for a project manager. And since the facilities committee didn't meet, I'm assuming that that's not coming. So I would just like it noted that that should be planned for next meeting,
Okay.
so that we don't
So
forget
noted.
about it.
So do you want me to make that?
Oh, not in the minutes?
Right.
You don't change, yeah.
No,
That's
no,
just for,
change,
that's
change.
for
I
us.
just, it just,
Right.
It's just noting it.
Do you want it noted in the?
I don't know how to.
It's just
Probably
that-
if Deborah's got a note, that's probably sufficient. It's just,
I
got it on my, because I was,
Okay.
it's
had a
just,
thing for the committee,
in
so.
too many meetings, things don't happen and then they get forgotten
lost,
about
yeah.
because of things like that, so.
That is exactly correct.
What we're trying to work on.
All right. Now, have we voted?
Oh,
No. Let's vote. On the approval of the minutes?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Accepted as written. Well, we have no public, so we have no public comment. Moving on to the next agenda item, correspondence.
I think I put in the
Yeah, we
packet.
put it
Yeah.
as compliments here.
And then there was a comment from a patron in Calava, because we had gotten signs for when we have programs to put outside, and a patron had commented how she liked that. So,
Nice feedback.
All right. Financials. Unfortunately, Dave is not going to be here today. So, I guess we have to defer our commentary.
Well, we might have some discussions without him, if that's all right. I mean, I think I had a question or two, and maybe.
Well, I did
Deborah-
too, but they were directed to Dave, so go ahead, Russ.
Okay. First of all, it was really nice to get this before the meeting, so I
Yes.
really, and when Dave is here, I will thank him for that. I think my question was really just, I know we had discussion about the property tax and the personal property tax reimbursement. Are we expecting more to come
I
out of that?
I don't think with the personal property tax reimbursement, I think that's what it is.
Was there an explanation as to,
It's just the way it rolled, which,
that doesn't, I mean,
No, it
it's
doesn't
a
make
state
sense.
formula, so it's not just random, it's.
I know.
So, I guess. who-
I know Dave was gonna have a conversation
Yeah.
with Russ, what happened there.
Right.
We'll have to wait for Dave.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
he said he was gonna.
so that's
Yeah.
a question for you.
Yeah, I don't.
Because that's, the $20,000 we're short, is that what that?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that, we need to find out about that for sure.
Well, it was a
Okay.
guesstimate, so, I mean,
But,
Right.
but also,
but
it's
we're usually
50,000 less
closer.
than a year ago.
yeah,
So
Yeah,
it's
that's-
less
It's
than
a
half of a
significant
year ago.
amount.
Yeah,
So we budgeted conservatively
yeah, but we
still.
had no clue.
And so Russ is leaving, I think his last
Just
day
want to
is.
let y'all know that the elevator is not working.
Oh, that's good to know.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
got signs up?
What did you do,
You
George?
put signs on it?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay, thanks.
What did you do? You came up in the elevator.
We're gonna have a roller now.
That was a little dance the jig she was doing
I walked.
there, so that's what's happening.
I did it. No sledding in park.
Procreate after you got
I
off.
broke it.
And then, I was looking at page 9 of the statement of revenue and expenditures, which just brought to mind a couple of things. I guess one was we're 7 months into the budget, the collection, subscriptions. I know books are a little on the lower side. Do we think we're going to reach our budget at the end of the fiscal year?
I guess for me, this is just my second year, and really seeing the collection and seeing what what is the right amount for our collection development. And I think I'm still working through that, because as I'm reading these collections and seeing, we have a lot of books, and we have new books coming in all the time. It's not like we're not ordering. So I think I'm still trying to figure out, is our budget too high?
Well, and I think that's reflected in the draft budget, because I noticed those numbers, kind of looking back at that history, what we spent last year versus what we budgeted this year, the budget was significantly increased. And now in the proposed budget, you've kind of balanced it, it's
I'm
somewhere
trying to-
between those two.
Yeah, because like
So,
I
and I
said,
think you're spending right now to about what your proposed budget is budgeting for next year.
yeah, I'm not really sure, but, you can't just order books just to order books. You've got to order what the people want. And like I say, people say, we had early on, someone made a comment, we don't have any books. Go downstairs, look at our shelves. They're packed with books, so we have to figure out,
What it is people need and want.
yes, rather than just filling the shelves just to fill them. We have a problem right now, and I'm trying my best to get to the reading, but we can't move our new books to the regular fiction shelves because the shelves are full, So it's not that we don't have any books.
So when
I
people say
think-
we don't have any books, they must mean, they mean something.
It means that
Yeah.
we don't have what they're looking for, and that's where I say we have these suggestion sheets. And so the
Okay.
staff needs to get better at saying, here, fill this out.
Right.
We have Melpads.
We have
access to every
Melpads.
book there is.
Yes.
It just is not today, it's, within a week.
Right,
So,
and that's it, we can't expand our shelves, so,
and I've mentioned this before, it's been a while, but in looking at the state library reports on financials, for our size population, and I don't remember the exact number, but we spend about twice as much in books as most libraries our size.
Wow.
Yeah, I know when I first started,
And that's not the
and
branch.
I had done a spreadsheet.
No, it's based on population.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we were on the very high end with our collection budget,
So again, like you're saying, it's understanding and being more efficient
Mhm.
than necessarily just spending to a
Just
dollar.
ordering books, just,
Especially if there aren't places to put them.
exactly,
Also,
exactly.
the number of us have commented is that we've seen a steady increase in the Melcat as well as the audio visual. And that is where, that's almost like an indirect request on the part of the patrons, that this is what they really want. I mean, the books, as far as what's been checked out, that is slowly going down, and that's been the trend for a long, long time. So I think we're heading in the right direction as far as tighter monitoring of the purchases.
But it's always something we should be focusing on as board. Are we providing the right materials and services? So these are good questions to have every month.
That's right, and we are paying very close attention to the mix and monitoring that. But, you know, that's appropriate.
And I do know that the staff has been asking people to please fill out the suggestion forms, but the patrons don't want to do that, so, you know, because I was.
No, they'd rather complain.
Exactly.
Well, did you ask? And that's what I just had a patron sent me an email about some audiobooks, and so I look in and I'm like, well, they're in here. What's, you know, so I don't know what's going on.
Right, I don't know either, but I have heard the staff, you know, say, well, you know, well, we have this, it's right here it is. Could you fill this out? And they say, no. So,
That's all we can do.
And, you know, and pay attention if someone just says, oh, I want more books on this type of
Yeah, and that's what
whatever.
we do.
Right.
right,
You
and
know,
then a lot of those get ordered through Milcat. Some people come in very specific on what they want, so.
Any other questions?
I did have a question, also, I guess, well, on page 9 and other places. The last line item, we put 3,000 into parking lot repair and maintenance, and I couldn't remember what we were planning to do before the end of the.
Wait, I was talking, I was gonna get those curbs.
Curbing,
Okay, thank you.
because they tend to run over onto the grass,
Yep.
which is why I think the cordon is up there
Yeah,
in an effort.
we could take that down now. Hopefully the snow's gone.
Yeah, and the other question, the other questions I had for Dave were, do we want to rethink our actual budget for snow removal?
Well, I don't know, that's a question for Dave, because, but, you mean in the next year's
Budget,
budget, or
budget.
you mean, or is it an
Yeah.
adjustment for this
I mean,
year?
just the adjustment, because we missed it by a large.
Oh, it's on,
Yeah.
I
It's
think it's
on
on the
Oh, I
adjustments
know.
that we're doing.
It's on here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, but you can't predict what winter's gonna be
No.
like.
No, no, I
So,
know.
yeah, so that's really an estimate, I guess.
And I think the year before, we were about that much under.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it can vary by about 100%.
that's a lot.
Exactly.
Right.
Alrighty. All right, we will defer this to the rest of the discussion to next month when Dave will be here.
So are you saying we should not accept these reports?
Well,
Or if
we could
you're-
accept them, but if we still have questions remaining,
I'd make a motion to approve
Approve?
the financial reports, because none of the questions we've had
Are
really
Are
are
going to
are
change.
gonna change things. They're really more looking for explanations.
okay,
And some of the things we're asking about are things from previous months.
all right, so,
I'll support.
all right, the motion is accept. Did I hear you?
Yeah, I'm supporting it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Administrative report.
Oh, excuse me, are we gonna do the adjustments? I see it is under financials on the agenda. Is that a separate line or is the adjustments?
Or is that part
It's
of
a
the?
separate
Is
sheet.
this- Oh, here it is. I didn't flip it. Okay.
And these are all done by Dave, so
Yeah.
you can probably go ahead.
I'd make a motion to approve the budget adjustments for the current fiscal year.
Support?
Support.
All those in favor?
Oh, hold on,
Just-
can I just give me 1 second? Let me just for discussion. Before you.
And also, this should be a roll call vote.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just see, there was one, I thought there was one thing I had a question on, but, let's see if I can find it. Let's see, general audience was a book category or some kind of collections, I just,
But
I guess we never.
there's no number
I
next to it.
guess we never
so-
do anything with it, so.
That's actually for programming.
Oh.
I didn't notice that. I don't know why he's got that on there.
But there's no number, there's no adjustment, so.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay. Let's just see, do we have a budget for?
Yeah. Yeah, it's under
Yeah.
programming.
Oh, okay, so we're just not making any, yeah, general audience. Oh, actually, but, well, the thing is, we're getting into the time of year where you're using all your budget.
Yeah.
So we're just not
Yeah,
gonna
so
change
we,
the
we
4,000
can't change the
budgeted.
programming, because that's
Okay.
where we're gonna
Right.
gonna
okay.
use it this time of year.
Okay, great, okay. I think that was my question.
Okay. All right,
Do you want me to start?
yeah, roll call.
Okay, I have a question.
Second that.
Motion.
Barb got
Okay.
I She nodded her
I
head.
know,
and
I
said
realized
yes.
that doesn't help anything.
Emma?
Yes.
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 Yes, thank you. You know, one nodded their head and one was.
Now, we are ready for the administrative report.
Any questions?
Yeah, I think I have one.
I would have lots of questions.
Yeah, well,
Good.
okay, under marketing, I'm just curious about the outreach, the feedback that you got when you did the outreach at the MCC and the Harbor View.
The outreach at MCC, Laurel, the youth services librarian, goes there a couple times a month. She takes them books and reads stories to them. And then I've been doing the Harbor View in Green Acres. What I do, I take books there, drop them off. They have like a bookshelf, and then bring them back.
I'm just curious about the interaction as we outreach you have, especially.
There's not really a lot of interaction. I
There
mean, it's
isn't.
basically,
Okay.
I have one woman that calls me from Harbor View and requests, certain books, so I pull those books along with other books. And then actually at Green Acres, we went to visit one lady that the staff told us to go visit because she likes books, so.
Oh, I see. Well, that's something, yeah. Okay. All right, very good. Mary, you're on with all your questions.
So, it's interesting reading this, it's like, well, what does that mean? Email county for van insurance and registration. There's probably a story behind that.
Do you really want to know the story?
I feel like
No, you don't.
I'll ask you
Leave it
later.
at that.
I'll ask you later.
Just know that we have the van insurance and the registration in the glove box.
Okay. Okay, I can piece together the rest of the story. Cleaning and delivery. I know we talked at personnel about some of those things, so you worked on that. I didn't know if
Well,
that
I
was
am your
something-
cleaning lady, I am your delivery guy, except for Nick volunteered to do it this week for me. I've been very challenged in finding people that will do this. So I've been coming in every morning and doing what I can do.
And that is.
That's what I do.
But,
Okay,
that-
so
but-
that's literally
What
you're
you're
doing
doing.
cleaning and delivery.
Yes,
That's.
yes,
Well, I
that's,
think we need to find a short-term solution.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know your long-term solution is hiring someone, but I would say, I would love us to find a short-term, I mean.
it's very hard to do. I talked with I won't say who, cleaning company, and, yeah, and they did not return the call that they said they would. So one of my staff has given me a contact number for someone that would be interested in short term, so.
And delivery, I mean, you're a really, from an organization viewpoint, you're a really highly paid delivery and cleaning person. If it's not a good use of your time or our.
I don't have,
So that's why if any of us could have any other solutions. No, I understand you've done we appreciate your going above and beyond and doing this. But this is
It
not, but we
it
don't
has-
want you taking time from your things that only you.
oh, I understand that, I totally understand that, this is another conversation that I don't think needs to take place here.
Okay.
You're doing a fine job.
Thank you.
I
As a library director, I've learned in life, I've shoveled snow, I've plunged toilets, you know, you do what you have to do to keep the
But
organization
Deborah,
running.
and so appreciate that, I'm not sure if I would do that. If within a week you haven't come to a short-term solution, would you just let us know via
I will.
email?
I will.
Yeah, keep us updated on
I will.
that.
Actually, what, the personnel committee, would that be rather than the whole board, or?
Yeah, I think
We can't do-
Whoever-
I mean, as a board,
Let
we can't
somebody in
do
the board
anything.
know.
Yeah.
I think it's good if the board knows,
Entire
because
board.
again, this may be every one of us knowing our personal connections to
That's
find
what-
a short-term
That's
solution.
actually what I was thinking, I'm not gonna think
Okay.
about it unless I know that the leads that she has
Okay.
don't pan out, but within a week, if they don't pan out, then we'll collectively scratch our heads and try to
And I
find someone.
did get, I'm going to be moving forward with interviewing, I've got 2 applicants.
Okay.
But they are good applicants
Okay,
for the maintenance. I mean, we're working through the hoops that we have to go through,
okay.
so hopefully
But
soon.
with- but with hiring, it could still be, I mean, if
Yes.
someone's leaving another job, it could be a month of,
Right, right.
you know,
Right.
so that's.
Well, unfortunate, the two that I have right now are both retired.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Okay, okay, good luck.
Good.
Then the other question I had is the donated withdrawn children's materials to K&D Brethren Book Swap.
Yes,
What is the K&D Brethren Book Swap?
and
How did they get on the list?
someone
Maybe-
called me or emailed me, they were doing a book swap. The kids, I guess they get these books and then the kids take books and bring books and I don't really know how it goes, but, so she contacted me and asked if we had any, children's, materials. And so, of course, we've been weeding, so
Mhm.
we were able to box up 3 boxes for them, so.
Is there a process that groups, organizations can go through to possibly get donations like that?
They just contact me.
Okay.
We've been giving some to, where's Borough at? Kennedy?
Yes.
Kennedy.
Okay.
So so
Okay.
if you know someone,
Do-
contact me.
Okay.
Very-
I'm good.
So I have just one question, Deborah, I was just wondering, this has been the first month or a little over a month that we haven't had outside technology consulting support. And I was just wondering how it went. All right, very good.
Didn't notice anything.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And I had a question, which was, you know, since, you know, Larry is still with the library, but over in Onekama, he was the one who's been trained on the HVAC system. So is there anyone else in the building who, and I don't know if there's other things that he was the one who could do, you know, is there anyone else, or if something went out, would he have to come back from Onekama? I mean, obviously, he can train the.
Well, we're going to have to work something out so that he can come in to train the new person. So trying to figure out those details. But he is, you know, I've been asking him stuff and, you know, so he is available and willing anytime we need something.
What do you mean by we have to work something out? Just work out something with him as far as his schedule goes, for him to come back in to train somebody?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So is that on the list to do then? Because I think that's a really important, that was an asset, to have somebody trained on how to take care of things.
Yeah. Yeah, once I get someone hired, yeah, we're gonna have to bring him back in to show everything.
So,
Yeah.
I guess someone else to cover Onekama, so.
Mhm. Yep.
That's a
I'll put it on my list to
consideration
follow.
when
That's
you're
a really
looking
good
at
question.
candidates, their ability to pick up this thing.
Well, it's kind of interesting because when I came in, I think some of you may recall, I think at one time you had a part-time maintenance person and you had a part-time custodian, which is the cleaning side. And then after I came in, then, you know, we realized Larry was doing more and more of the maintenance side of it. You know, he was also doing the cleaning, so we bumped him up to the maintenance custodian. But then when you look at the job description of it, it's more maintenance side of it, you know. So I think both of the candidates that I have right now have a good background in, you know, kind of what we need, a broad scope of, you know, cleaning and also taking care of the HVAC and the maintenance side of it, so.
Yeah, what we got used to is, the fact that Larry would look and Larry could see and anticipate, plan, schedule his time. That's a nice position to be in. That's, yeah, so, now we have an expectation set.
I think we'll be all right.
I think so too. Yeah, I mean,
I do have one more question, and it's partly addressed in some of the other information in the board packet, which I don't know where it is right now, but on the statistics, hotspot use, 9 for the month, that's about $100 per use, which, but I did see that there was some survey results, so
Yeah.
we're at least trying to ask people as to, but I think we need to know more than just a general comment. I think for those that are using it, I think we need to know why they're using it and how they're using it. Just so that we can identify, because I mean, the comments are, well, at least the one that had written comments is like, this is the best service the library offers.
yeah.
But that doesn't tell us why.
Right.
And it doesn't help us identify who are the other people like that need this service, that would appreciate. And then we have to figure out how we get the word to them, because the fact that this few people are using it, it's probably more of a fact of, people don't know about it. But we can't just, how you broadcast, that we have the service, we kind of like need to know who are we trying to reach. So just trying to find out more, because it's like, you look at this number, it's like, oh, it's not worth it. Then you read that comment and it's like, wow, there's a niche here that we've got to figure out how to solve.
Yeah.
It's just, how do we put the two together?
I have to add something to that too, because my first question when I looked at this is, what branch was this? I assumed that, I was hoping maybe, that this would come from one of our branches rather than the main library.
We don't have hotspots at our main library.
Okay, all right, so this is, it would be interesting to be able to identify the location.
Okay.
Uh,
I know I was in Onekama yesterday and a lady was returning one and she really appreciated it, so.
We also did this, if we can recall our original discussion, is that we were concerned about the spotty internet service out
Yeah.
in branches like Wellston,
Right.
I mean, there's dead spots in Calava, and it would be nice to be able to validate one of the rationales we did for the purchase, is where I'm going with that.
And on this month, Wellston had 4 uses, but Calava only 1, and you'd think, I think, as Barry said, the people who need it may not know about it. How do we get the word out?
And I know when we first launched it, there was a news article.
I remember it, I remember it.
But
Maybe
remember
it
the
merits
percentage of
repeat.
people,
We have highlighted it and I mean,
I have,
I know we can do
ideas.
something on Facebook.
I think the Facebook, something, and then, maybe worth putting in the tax bills when they go out twice a year.
That's a really good idea.
Like getting the townships, if they do newsletters or they have websites, I mean, there may be, I have a feeling there's ways we can promote it too, especially a lot of it's your area, Richard, where the internet is not good. There's other pockets in Onekama, I know, but yeah, it would be great to do a little publicity campaign if we're gonna keep that.
The other thing is, are there services available from the newspaper free, as far as just putting a service notice in? No, not at all. Okay.
Not the news advocate.
Okay, well,
Unfortunately.
And I think you also have to think about the distribution
you should,
area.
exactly.
While
Who
the
actually
news,
reads it?
well, and it's shrinking, but I
Yeah.
suspect it's probably more heavily concentrated in the city.
Correct.
And villages, not necessarily the rest of the county,
Yeah,
which is
probably
where
Manistee,
these needs
That's
think
where,
are.
that's where our
So-
target population is at
Right.
point.
Yep.
And, you mentioned Facebook, but if the target audience is those that don't have internet
That's
access.
true. Yeah, we had this
Or
conversation.
spotty,
It's
yeah,
interest-
true, that's
it's
good,
interesting,
yeah, that's, you're right.
think
Yeah, we were
about
just
that.
having this
Facebook.
conversation about, yeah,
Yeah, But they may have spotty, I mean, they may have it when they come to the, you know, or
Yeah.
something, but so it's probably worth putting it on Facebook, at least that's what I, a reminder.
Well, in my mind.
They can let people know.
In my
you know.
mind, they were, this was really, I was hoping kids would be using it for their classes. And, so I don't know if, the schools would have been
For
notified.
September.
Well, I think I think they have to be 18, you know, the parents would have to.
Would have to,
Right,
but still, but the
sure,
parents would get
yeah.
notified if the kids are,
Right.
if it goes through the school to notify the families.
Right.
Because I kind of was hoping that we would see heavy use and then it would drop off in the summer. And then we'd pick up back to the school system. Or conversely, it actually would remain the same because we'd have all of our summer people wanting to use the internet.
And the students who don't have internet at home have it at school, and then they can't get into their
Yeah,
school.
so maybe
So
it
might have
would,
been
it
the
actually
summer
might
could-
even
yeah.
jump up, yeah,
Yeah, but it's such
Hmm.
an interesting service to.
it's a great service. I think the numbers reflect that maybe the word isn't out.
I have a couple additions. I don't know if you guys saw, on May 25th, there were members of the Rolling Thunder came and put up a new flag, so they had a little ceremony, it was in the newspaper.
Okay.
So that was kind of neat. Larry and I participated in that. And I will be taking a little vacation Thursday through Monday. And Roz had asked about the Library Privacy Act. I just wanted to put that in your packet and be sure that you read it. I've had to educate my staff on this. And I just want the board to know that you cannot ask an employee for another patron's information.
Of course not.
Okay.
A parent can for a child?
What's that?
A parent can for their minor child? Would that be an exception or not even?
Actually,
that?
that's a tough line, and it's
They're in a
even
gray
like,
area.
and even like if Barry was coming to pick up a book for Anne, you know, you're crossing a line there, and people don't understand that, you know, and they get really upset about it, but, you know, we're bound by this, and even, you know, with patrons' information, so I hope you guys read it, and just make sure you carry that with you.
Good background.
And I've seen children come in to pick up books for their parents. And my sense is that, you know, mom is parked out here, drops the child off, and they come in the front door and say, I'm here to pick up my mom's book.
Yeah, that's hard, that's hard, so,
I have one last question.
okay.
Under technology, the teen computers, their setup,
Mhm.
has there been a noticeable increase in use?
There's been kids there, yeah.
Okay.
I will tell you, I still have one teen for a short period of time in the family, and he did come and use the library on a number of occasions towards the end of the last couple of months. And he remarked that he really liked it, and it was comfortable, and it seemed geared towards his, you know, way of thinking and view. But he did say, but it's right there where everybody can see us. So, you know, the teens are trying to hide. And so I just kind of said, well, I'm glad you liked it. But so the feedback from a teen who actually will say he has not been using the library maybe like his siblings did, because he grew up in a different time with technology, enjoyed it. So I thought that was nice.
Good, thank you.
And I'll tell you a little experience I had. I tell them very about this. My computer was down at home. I went in the Cal to use the computer. Guess what? The door was locked. Okay, so I go over to Bear Lake. Gonna use their computer. Guess what? The door was locked. So I said, I guess I don't need to use your computer.
What time?
Between 11:30 and 12:30, I don't remember what day it was. I figured one would be open because they both were gonna be gone at the same time, right?
No.
I need to know what day and what time.
Yeah.
'Cause
I mean, I've heard people say this, you know, but I've never really had to use it, and I went there and I just.
Well, I know-
That would be a bad impression for me.
They all have late days where they don't open.
But it's then it's posted that, you
Yeah.
know, like our Necama doesn't open.
Should it have been
Wednesday.
open?
I mean, it was
I
supposed
don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. I was just telling you that I went there and it was in the middle of the day, you know, nobody there.
But that's to be expected, because our hours.
Well,
not-
like I say, they all have a day where they don't open until
Yeah.
11:30, and then they
Yeah.
have another day that they don't open until 2.
Ah, it must have been, okay.
So-
Well, that's a good question, though, maybe it shouldn't be 2 branches, the next one that might be near on the same 2 o'clock opening?
No, they're not.
Oh, okay.
They're all
It- it-
staggered.
Yeah.
It just
okay.
happened that this
Okay.
day.
Okay.
Maybe somebody had an emergency or not.
But-
Who knows? But,
Richie,
Okay.
you mentioned this to me, I
yeah.
don't know, sometime earlier when we were chatting. What to me is interesting is, as a patron, you know, the first thing I would think should be asked is, oh, am I here during open hours? The fact that he didn't know what the open hours was or were indicates to me that our signage is not prominent enough, that it should be very obvious, you know, if you're going to a door and it's
Oh, if I
locked,
come back in an hour, they'll be there.
when are they open? And I don't, and not getting to the branches that often, not really looking at the signage, I'm just curious, is there something we can do to make our hours more prominent?
I
If you
can
hear
honestly
about it,
say,
yeah.
I know if you walk
You
into
know.
Wellston, the hours are right there in front of you. We
Right.
just changed the signs out at Onekama yesterday, they're right there in front of you.
Good.
Right.
Bear Lake, they're right there next to the door.
Okay.
Same with Calva.
Yeah, there's, it's
Calvas?
on the door.
Yeah.
It's on the door.
No,
It
No,
used to be
they're
in the
there.
window.
Okay.
They're there.
People just don't look at signs.
Okay.
They really don't.
Signs are for dummies.
Some days we're not very upset.
But,
We put up signs, but they don't.
so, and this is gonna be weird after the comment that signs are not looked at, but in this situation, Richard had looked and wanted to know, what are the hours of the other, I'm going to a branch that's not open now. Is there another branch that is open?
We have a brochure that
Okay.
you can pick up, and it has all of our branches and the
And
hours
that's
in
available
it.
outside?
And I would love to get you
But
one.
it's only inside, right?
But if
I
you're
mean,
at a
it's-
door,
make
and
it-
you're locked out, there isn't, that information isn't available
That-
as to what the
No,
other
that's an
branches
interesting
are.
I need
concept.
to do something that my granddaughter could tell me. Because she used them.
But we can get you a brochure and you can carry it with you.
The other,
I don't
you
even
know,
have a library card.
Yeah.
I haven't had a library card in years.
Shame on you.
yes, truly.
don't
So,
wanna know
but
that.
another suggestion then with signage though, I mean, if I, as someone with whom went to the local library when I was on the road and, you know, oh, that's right, there's one in this town and this one, I would go on the website, so maybe
Right.
part of the sign would be, you know, www dot, and so that way at least someone could say, oh, isn't there one, I think there's one in Arcadia, let me Google it and see, so I don't know if that would might, in future signs.
I mean, you
but
can
Google Manistee Library
I guess you
I
can.
mean,
Let's
but I like what you're saying.
Yeah, no, well, let's extend that a little bit, going back to Barry's comment and your comment. We could also add a line, for those who don't have the internet or are not familiar with it, and there is that population in the rural area. The nearest open library is, you know, and that's, in other words, they'll
Yes,
see
it's
that the library is closed, and this is their late day, but there might be another library, like, if you were at Calva and you go to Bear Lake or Arcadia, maybe the note would read, the nearest library opened this morning, or today is, the hours of the nearest library. Some kind of phrase, website plus, and that gives 2 alternatives for looking.
All right, I got another question for you. You said you purchased the teen computers. You ever try leasing them for 3 years and sending them back?
Leasing computers?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll tell you a little story. K&D school system. It was over there, and I was at a board meeting, and this is probably about 10 years ago, that they were talking about buying these computers. That's when Greg Webster was there. So I said to Greg, I said, what business are you in? He said, you know, technology for kids. I said, then why are you buying computers? You should lease them, send them back and get state of the art. 3 years the contract's up. You're back, that's what you're doing. Okay, story gets better. So he thought about this all night. So he went in the next day and he made a couple phone calls. Called Candy and IBM. Found out that they both would lease computers. I know this because they do it at Ferris, that's how they do over there. So he said that he did, and it was $62,000 for 2 full rooms of computers, okay? He said, but it gets better, he said. After I talked to him, I found out there was a grant for $58,000. He says, for $4,000, he says, we got 2 rooms full of computers. Just something to check on, because it depends what business you're in, you know, and they're in education, well, they need the state of the art. They don't need old ones. And then they have the option to purchase the old ones, but they purchase and put them in the lower grades, is what they did. He said, we never had such a good deal. But just something to check on, Deborah, if you want to. I know that's what they do at Ferris. That's how they keep state of the art. Just lease them. That's all I got.
Okay. Any more questions about the administrative report? Moving on to committee reports. Technology did not meet. Is there a plan in the near future for technology to meet?
Yes, I've got a list of committees that I need to set up.
Okay. Personnel?
That's probably me. If you, a lot of this has already been discussed. I think that there was a meeting that was going to be set up between Deborah and Joyce and.
No, not me, not on personnel.
No, I know that, but with the county.
I haven't talked to her about it yet.
Oh, okay,
so-
sorry.
Okay, well, it's in the minutes
She's been on a
here.
commission.
Yeah, she has been
Somewhat
kind
in
of
commission.
slowed down a bit here. So, and also we were going to talk about capital improvements and decided the facilities would add that to their agenda. And Deborah continues to go to her leadership skills in service. And then there's going to be a staff in service that's scheduled for August. And I think there was a strategic plan meeting, was this a phone meeting, I think, scheduled for May 7th? Since we're into June, something, did that happen?
Kind of.
Okay,
I think it's on the agenda.
Okay.
okay.
I have spoken to Ms. David, by the way.
And then Deborah brought up the fact that Gary Block is retiring, which he did, and I understand that the first thing he did was to buy his fishing license, so that's what he's doing. And then Larry had applied for the position, so we now know that Larry is the branch manager out in Onekama. And then Deborah was going to outsource the cleaning, and then at that time, Julie was gonna transport the books to the branches, so obviously, it's kind of like the minutes are obsolete at this point.
It sounds like it.
I just
It
would
was a
like
month
to,
ago, yeah.
Things change.
Yeah, if you,
well,
we
it's
want
the
a
only
dynamic
constant in
institution,
life.
don't we?
So,
I'm not sure if we want it this
That's
dynamic.
so, I just reviewed the obsolete minutes.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. All right.
I want to add one thing though, and it ties into that meeting that the committee was recommending. It's becoming clear that one of our bottlenecks in moving the library forward as it relates to personnel is our lack of available HR resources. And we theoretically are paying for resources with the county. We're not getting the services we think we are paying for, and that's really what that meeting to be held with the county administrator was to be about. But if we cannot go down that path, I think the committee would be recommending at some point to the board that we start allocating budget dollars to hire outside HR services, at least for a period of time, so that we can get through some backlog issues. So I just want the board to be aware that we view that as a critical bottleneck right now. And if there's anything you want to add to that.
I agree.
Okay.
Your comment for some
very
time.
challenged.
Yeah, your comment for some time. Are you talking about temporary resources, or are we looking, after we push the envelope on the county to find out just exactly what we can get on a regular basis, and we find there's nothing definitive decided, we should move ahead.
Right.
But would we make that, are you recommending that we make this a permanent or just a periodic?
I don't know, because I think a lot of it depends on
The answer?
what the answer from the county is, because if the answer is, well, we can't do this, everything we want, but we can do this, well, then we have to figure out how to fill whatever that gap is. And the nature of that gap may be shorter term versus a long-term gap. And as we hire other, people in the future as needs arise, maybe we could build this up in-house, because we don't have, our size of our organization doesn't require a full-time person
Yes.
doing this.
But if we have a new hire in the future who has
Who
HR
has that might be
experience
something we would look for.
in a,
But again, it depends on what that gap is
yes,
with relates to what services we can get from the county.
okay, so,
But I think we need, we've had this conversation in personnel, from my perspective, I think we need an HR person that is more available, consistent, and I think the challenges that I've had for the last year and a half is because of the lack of, I'm trying to build my skills in all areas, but I can't be everything to everyone. And I do lack these skills, but I'm trying to learn, and I have learned, but I don't know enough. And the challenges that we have, I just feel that we need someone that can help us.
So has it really been a year and a half since we sat down with David to reestablish that they were providing HR services, and that he assured us that the county was gonna be able to provide that service?
But they didn't,
Was it really a year and a half though?
no, that's how long I've
Probably-
been here.
It's probably been a year.
About a year. Okay, so for a year, since that initial meeting, we have been seeing how it's gonna go. And-
We get something here,
Right, so I
we
guess
get something
where
here.
I'm going with this, Deborah, is when you meet with him again, I guess I have the recommendation to you to kind of lay it out like that, where you say, it's been a year, and we've been testing this new model, and we've been trying to find our way and see if the service is what we need it to be, and we're finding that it's not. But I suspect what you're gonna need to be able to do is really quantify it. Like, this is what our expectations were, this is really what you provided, and this is really what we need. Because we may find that we're going to be renegotiating a service contract with the county, and so we need to kind of quantify what we expected, what they provided, and what we still need, and we need to make sure that that's all verbally said.
verbally,
Yeah, during the course of that meeting, so everybody understands very clearly what we need and what we're not getting.
I would like to see some of that in writing.
Well, yeah,
Well, you're gonna have
absolutely.
to-
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
In both of them,
if that meeting goes well,
Sure.
it's probably the first of a couple meetings.
Yep.
Where you start
Exactly.
pinpointing down. If it doesn't go well, then,
We know what to do.
but I mean, in this, I'm afraid to ask this question, but, I mean, we are a component of the county with a $1.4 million budget. Deborah, how many times have you met with David, the county administrator, in the last year?
Last year? Twice.
Twice. That doesn't seem like the right level of service
It's not on
as
you,
a,
Deborah.
as a component of the county. Now, David himself also is newer than you in the job, so, but I mean, we are a department of the county. Yes, we have some things about us that are more independent than other departments, but we need some attention because, like you said, with a staff of roughly 15, I know it's a little bit more than that. We're not big enough to have an HR department and, this department and this department. We need that help, but we're not getting it.
Yeah, as a reminder, going back even farther.
And I'm saying this almost as much to you as I am to him.
He knows.
Before Deborah, there were a number of requests made of prior county administrator, and everything got deferred or canceled. So if you talk about the fact that we met twice,
Yeah.
how many times did we make a request and it never happened? That's,
I mean, we're waiting now 3 years for this draft agreement for a lease of this building.
yes. Well,
That goes back a couple years before
The
the.
county,
That's
first.
Yeah, I've been
The
just reading
county's
that.
not gonna make a move on that until you make the move. I can tell you, they're not.
That
gonna
move was already made.
But,
When you guys did it prior to my arrival, I just read the paperwork on it.
yeah, well,
Tom and Chuck were supposed to be coming up with it, and it never happened.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's
But
why
now,
we're
and
still
now,
waiting.
and now everyone, yeah, so.
well, the other thing is that before we even do that, we still have to go back and look at who we are now and where we are and what our needs are before we push for a lease. But I would be a lot happier just to start with a better working communication. Let's
That's
start
where
with
it's gotta
that.
start.
Yeah, and go
We'll
from
have that
there.
meeting.
Yeah, okay. All right, we got over facilities did not meet, we found the hiccup in the minutes, so.
Yes, and for facilities, I just want to say, I know Barry brought up the, project manager discussion for their agenda. And the other thing, and this can be something we can decide if we want to do this now, but Dave, at our last meeting, Dave Richards, mentioned it would be helpful to have a 5-year budget for capital improvements. And if we decide that's the time frame and what we want to do, we probably should start with facilities. So, whether you guys do that, so,
I think
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that for.
Good point.
That was already on the agenda.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that's,
good.
yeah, it's in there.
But there
Through
was
the
a
personnel committee.
Oh, right,
No,
okay,
it's
so
a-
personnel is
It's a good
also
observation,
saying,
we've
yeah.
got all the board members observing, and this is a good comment coming from somebody
Oh, I
outside.
appreciate Rob so much.
Just a little information, Rob Carson is working on all the capital that we have here for a capital improvement plan. He's putting it all together. I don't know if the library put anything in for the information.
I know last year he had contacted me about, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember what I put, but I put something on it.
yeah, because I remember, it's been a number of years back, that they even had a book, and every property that we own, that the county owned, they had a picture of the value, the appraisal, and everything. And they haven't done that in years, but Rod's working on that. It was just brought up at our board meeting last month. But some of the people never sent their information back, so he's got to guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Next committee's policy. Roz, you wanna?
Oh, okay, well, just a overview of our meeting, we did start with a discussion of services of the library, so I don't know if we want to get into, I mean, rather than going through the minutes and then saying, but Is that something we want to discuss
No.
as a group now?
No, I think we'll save it.
Okay, so that's something that because the committee did get some information, so we're working on that, and I assume we'll work on it on the next meeting. The patron policy of behavior, we've got a draft, and that comes up under new business. The bylaws, we've been working steadily to get that resolved, and it's at Cheryl May's Library Co-op, I assume.
Nope, it's at the attorney.
Oh, even better. And then the financial policy was worked on by the finance committee. The policy committee, we met with Dave Richards, and we also have that under new business for you. So, and then the last paragraph there about, if there's gonna be any discussion on a topic, make sure that the committee does send out, besides their minutes, if there's anything else we need to look at, if we're making a decision or a longer discussion at the board meeting, it's nice to have that in advance rather than just looking at it here. Finance? Oh, let me do that
It's on the
one.
backside.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was really looking at our next budget, which is also under new business, and that was it. Okay. Any comments? Moving on to old business. Library projects update?
The young adult area is done, please go see it, except for the carpet, which we will talk about shortly. And then we are going to, Pam, Nick, and I will meet and start trying to draft up how the tech room project will go, because we have to figure out, the timing of it, pulling the computers out and getting the carpet in, the paint, and where we will put those computers and all of that, so we're going to start that planning.
Are there any other projects being worked on this year? Or just those two?
I guess that's the facilities, well, I mean, hopefully.
So I run the risk of asking back stairs and tile removal and asbestos removal and that.
Once we get
That's the whole
I mean, I've got the
construction
quotes,
manager.
I've got all of that, just piecing it all together.
Okay. So that's still in the works.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
slow
yeah,
for lots of reasons,
yes.
including the fact that you're doing late.
Strategic plan proposal?
I just put it on there, I guess the camera can.
That's okay. So I had a lovely conversation with David Vogt.
I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but yeah.
How's that
Um,
spelled? H?
No, it's
I think it's
V-O-
VO something, VOI.
I think it's in the minutes
White?
from my
Yeah,
or
right.
something. I
Well,
said,
it was,
So
This
David,
would be.
from, so we had a really nice conversation to hash out some of my concerns about the strategic plan proposal that he submitted. And my major concern about the proposal was not at all about his credentials and what he could bring to the table with understanding about libraries, modern libraries, the work that they've done. As a matter of fact, the more he spoke about the work that he's done for other libraries, it's very impressive that he clearly knows libraries. But my concern was that the proposal proposed a strategic plan that wasn't a board-centric strategic plan. And in fact, it is not. It is not a board-centric strategic plan, and he acknowledged that. And he said he didn't really pinpoint what type of strategic plan it is, but it is written with a lot of input, which we always want, lots of input, so that's a great thing. I liked his process, and it's exactly what I would recommend myself. But a new mission, a new vision, new core values, new goals, new objectives written by the strategic planning committee, made up of a cross-section of people, including just a couple members of the board. And the tone and tenor of the strategic plan and the vision of it is set by, you know, this cross-section. And this is what I thought was really interesting. It hinges on the director. The strategic plan is for the director, and it is operationalized by the staff. So the committee will form the vision and the mission, will form the goals, and then the staff of, the director will work with the staff of the library to operationalize it, to figure out the nuts and bolts of how it's going to become implemented. So that is something for all of us to consider, because I did educate him on some of the work that the personnel committee is doing. He was aware of some of the work, but he wasn't fully aware of some of the struggles that we've been having and some of the changes that might occur in the future, and our positioning with the county and our HR discussions. So we did talk at length about that. He was aware, obviously, that we're a union here, and that is different than, you know, he has experience with all types of libraries, with all types of different employee configurations. And he likened us to the Kalamazoo Library, where they have a huge staff that are unionized. But they are a staff that's a different type of staff makeup and educational levels regarding the staff's education about libraries. So a much different, just, how about this? We're very different than what he has done. Acknowledging that he has been in a lot of libraries. He's very impressive. I really enjoy talking to him, but we are very different. So here we have a strategic plan that will be hinged on the dynamicness of our director and operationalized by staff. So I bring that to you. And then I did ask him, I said, we like having a strategic plan that also helps direct our board. We do have a board that has changed from the first rendition of the strategic plan to now, and part of it was through the strategic planning process. You wouldn't recognize, this board is unrecognizable compared to the board that I met, 4 years ago. The direction that we're taking is very different, and the nudging came from the strategic plan. So he did say, well, it could be a component of the strategic plan after it's written, so that the board would take the direction from the strategic plan, then create maybe a smaller one after the fact. So this is what I learned, and I lay that out for you.
Great information.
Questions?
It was
for
a
doing that.
good conversation.
Questions?
Yes.
Okay, one is, he said we're very different, Kalamazoo. Part of our difficulty is when we hire staff, they don't have a library background.
Exactly.
And that's a big hurdle to start with. And then bringing them on board with the milieu or environment of a library. And next is engaging them in the work. It's not just a job. It is to me, it hinges on a commitment as a service commitment. Yeah. Now, did he, when he made this comment about us being like Kalamazoo, was it just in reference to being unionized?
Yes.
Or that's the only?
That was the only,
Okay.
that was the only piece that he likened it to. And there were other libraries that I don't really remember. He just kind of focused on Kalamazoo. He was just trying to let me know that he has worked with libraries that are unionized and that are not.
Were you able to bring up, your comment was that we're different. Now, were you able to draw for him and then get a response from him as far as what our differences are from our point of view?
I relayed what I thought our differences, well, I relayed our situation to him. And then, in other words, our relationship with the county, our building, the employees, how they're hired, some of the credentialing, I've never really dug into that, but I know enough. And it's not that he said the words, "you are different," because he's not going to do that. He's probably perfectly capable of working within this environment, I'm sure of it. But what I was trying to get from him was an understanding that the type of strategic plan that he wanted to bring to us was the type that we as a board wanted. That we had faith in, that we felt could move the library in the direction that we wanted it to.
Because we started with, looking at this organization because we were trying to reach out where the experience and the background is in libraries.
Yeah, he's got it in spades.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
But then we have to, as a board, understand where we fit in and then be able to express our needs and then, get the feedback back from him.
So, oh,
Can I
yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
The difference between a strategic plan and a master plan. Because it sounds that aspects of what his work product is somewhat master plan-ish, less, board strategic plan-ish. Did that term come up in your conversation?
No, and I do think that when he talked, I think he was thinking strategic plan in his mind, because when he talked about operationalizing it, really getting the nuts and bolts of how those goals were going to be implemented, and then the measurements, I really like this part of the conversation, the measurements and the benchmarks that he was gonna put in place. That to me says strategic planning. Master plans usually don't get into that kind of depth. What I did like, just to carry this thought, what I did like about talking about the benchmarks and the measurements, he was aligning them with national standards, and I don't remember what they were, but they would allow us to benchmark ourselves off of other libraries seamlessly. I liked that part of the conversation. I thought that was really great. And I did inform him that we wanted to use the strategic plan to then evaluate Deborah. That we, tried it last year. We all knew it was very imperfect, but we wanted to use it as a tool to evaluate our director. He hummed at that, but he seemed to absorb it, and he was going to think about that and how to use it that way. So, no,
Okay.
nothing about
Okay.
master planning. I will tell you that he said at this point, he cannot begin anything until 2020. Okay, so, and I said, well, we have a little bit of an urgency. We were really hoping to capture the summer residents, really get input with them here in residence. But he said that he's got a number of projects already on the books. He wouldn't have been able to start until the fall anyway. So now he would be looking at early 2020. So I can do a follow-up phone call with him and ask him about the master plan.
No.
Okay, or any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, my question is, I feel like I have a much better idea of what they're going to deliver. I don't know if it fits, I don't know that we've decided that that's what we want. So whether it's a committee that comes up with that or is something as a board, obviously it has to be a board. But, we're obviously committed to strategic planning. So is this the right vehicle? It sounds like this is what he does. He's not gonna modify it too much for what we're saying our needs are. So what is it that we need? And if we'd like to get it done by the end of the calendar year, then, but it doesn't sound then that this will work for us for this year. Do we want that in the future? And again, it might be, I think we really did want a board plan where the board is central, which doesn't mean we don't need to go out for community input and support. So, but I think we don't know what or I'm not clear on what it is that we are looking for, what information.
I feel the same way. What do we want? I guess I do like a board plan, but I can't decide if I'm biased, because I've been involved. But it seems like we have a fantastic director, but I said this to David, I said, what if our director comes and goes? the board is still here, we're really strong, and I let him know, we do not wanna micromanage at all. We do not wanna get into the weeds with what the director is doing, we really
Even
wanna.
though we do, but.
We want to
it's just-
empower her,
it's
or him,
natural.
and we want to support, but we don't want to, so I don't.
And we also have to keep in mind that we've been stable for however long our newest numbers are, but that all of a sudden you get a year or two and it's totally different people for whatever reasons. So, that's, so I don't know.
I have a question. Did anything come up about if he made a statement that he couldn't get involved until 2020.
Right.
We have a sense of urgency. In between that, is there any prep work that we could possibly be starting? And what came to mind is like a community survey. Do anything that we can initiate.
Well, I'd be happy to ask him that question. I told him I'd give him a follow-up call after we all talked, so I
Yeah.
will ask him if there's any,
Questions that have come up that we have raised, and one of them would be prep work.
okay?
Yeah.
So you mean us putting together a community survey in the meantime? Is that where you were thinking? Or hiring,
Well, the prior community survey was well before my time, so how was it done?
Well, yeah, and I don't know how
Was it
he
done
proposed,
internally?
I don't know how he proposed to get community input, so I don't know if it was gonna be a survey, but I can ask him if there's something we can do. I will tell you that we did end the conversation with saying he has some things he's gonna think about. Like, I challenged him to think about how could he transform his model into something that maybe was more board-centric. But I wanted to get your guys's, how you felt about it before I committed him to thinking that way. But I did say, I'll follow up with you, let you know what we talked about as a board. But he said, I will think about how I can change my model. And then I said to him, I have complete faith, you are obviously extremely well educated in what you do. You can just tell that he's had great success with his type of product. So I challenged him to rethink and maybe adjust a little bit based on whatever our conversation was. But I just have to report back to him.
Let's pick up on your comment about, something that's more board-centric, because if we have a board that was starting to put together a strategic plan that includes community members, there's a fine line with the message as far as who's going to be driving it in the future. And that's what we have to make a decision on as far as board-centric versus, community-wide input. I mean, there are boards that exist out there that, the community is driving what is going on. And I don't know how productive the boards may or may not be, I just know that they exist. Or do we want to continue to be a board-centric organization?
Well, I also think it depends what our questions are. I mean, if it's our
Right.
commitment to this building, you have to have community input. It cannot
Exactly.
just be, if we're talking about some other issues, it really might be 90% board, but what is it that we're trying to come out of this and say, now we have a map that will steer us on these questions? I guess I'm not sure what those questions are.
I don't
But
either.
we need to know what is it are we looking for community input on the library and then we'll adapt to it? Or are we looking for an answer to this building, the branch system, other bigger issues that have come
Bigger
up?
picture kind of
So,
issue.
We are a system, a library system. We are not the Carnegie Building plus branches. So we represent a community, a county-wide system, and I think that's what you're addressing. Am I correct?
That's part of it.
So as we flesh this out, he did say, and maybe Deborah, you could contribute, he said service orientated. He kept talking about what services are going to be provided, and that's what the input would be about, with services. That's different than what we're talking about, like a bigger picture of where we're taking our library system.
Right, or do we need the service? Yeah, I mean, that's an important part, obviously, in the library if we're so,
Right.
yeah, that's a good,
Yeah,
another good one, yeah.
I'm not sure I have my notes, but I know I made a note of it, and I think I talked to you about it. It's because you guys are taught, and I'm still confused, and I think, just listening to you guys, I think some of you guys are confused too. Like, what is board-centric? How is this different than the strategic plan that would come out of getting community input. And I think that's what I know I'm struggling with, like, what does this look like? Why are you calling it board-driven? Why is it board-driven?
Well,
We're
I can
here.
answer your question really easily, but Barry.
We're
if you
here
want to-
for, you know, in like, when I talked with David, you know, and that's what he said, you know, we're here. I do my job for the people. That's who I do my job for. Yes, I answer to you, but our strategic plan is, you know, it didn't come from me, but the previous director led that with the board, and you guys came up with that strategic plan, okay? It was, you know, a plan that you felt this is what your community needed. So I guess I'm still confused about the board.
I'll try to answer it because I think it ties into this conversation from my perspective, obviously. I believe that strategic direction and planning is a responsibility of the board. We as a board set those directions.
Yeah.
Generally, because it's our responsibility, we as a board are involved in that as a board. This process that's being proposed here is basically asking us to delegate our responsibility to a very knowledgeable industry expert, trusting that the outcome of that is something that would be acceptable to the board. The concern that I would have is, what if the result of that process, this board doesn't approve? We've then just spent a lot of money for a document that we won't approve.
And
Now,
I know,
I don't think that would happen, but
No.
that's, when you delegate something and you're not driving the process, or as a board, all 5 of us involved in it, that's the risk you run. And I think that's where, you know, it's a balancing act. I mean, I'm hearing so much positive, and do those positive things outweigh those, you know, scenarios that are potentially negative? If it weren't for this timeline thing, I think based on everything I've heard, I would say I'm willing to move forward with this because we need that outside expertise more so now than ever, because we collectively as a board, and with you helping us with your expertise, we've got a lot of strengths in a lot of areas, but we're lacking in what David could bring to the table. And therefore, I was like, okay, I'm willing to, you know, let that process happen, because I think it would produce the right result. But if we have to wait a year, that's where I'm now struggling here.
Well, wait a year.
I don't
is
know
like
if that answered
6
your
months.
question.
well,
It is
I know from my conversation,
Start.
That's
Let's try to
true.
get it deliverable.
Well, that's true.
I had a conversation with him before Tamara did, and just kind of giving him an overview of kind of trying to understand where you guys were coming from. And so his answer to that question is, you all can be a part of it.
He said that too to me as well, but,
You know, and I think, you know, as board members, yes, it's your responsibility, but it's also your responsibility to make sure that I'm doing my job to serve the people, to bring them what they want. That's your job.
so
You know.
nobody is saying anything different, Deborah. But he is making it mutually exclusive. His plan is one type, and I think what I hear from everybody here, and maybe what you're not understanding is we would like it to be both. Definitely want all the public input, want to hear what everybody has to say, but we as a board want to drive what we do with that information and how the board creates those goals and creates those objectives, and then how maybe it's even operationalized.
Particularly because in dealing with a broader set of inputs, all of those processes that you solicit inputs, you're gonna come up with great ideas. Unfortunately, we as a board, you as staff, are constrained by the real world where we have budgets, we have limited resources, we have limited capacity both financially as well as personnel to do things. And it's that process of winnowing down and reining in all of this good stuff into something that's achievable. That's where we come in, because ultimately we're the ones that have to make those decisions going forward when it comes to budget, when it comes to staffing, et cetera. And are we involved in enough in that process that we're aligned with the knowledge that we have, that we bring to the table of, you know, the challenges we've had over the last, number of years?
I'd like to slide my comments in between what you have said and what Tamara has reported back and what she had fed to date. I think in listening, there is a number of components that I think we need to list out, because what we're going back and forth with are parts of what we'd like to see. Yes, I'd like to see, input from a larger committee, but I do agree that given our size and what the structure we work with, board-centric is the way to go. Now, if we list out for him the components of what we think are essential parts of what our needs are, deliver it to him, get him to it.
So I'd be happy
That would
to.
be the question.
I'd be happy to do that. I think that's a great idea. To look at his proposal, pick out the parts, and it probably is going to mimic it pretty closely, but then to emphasize the board-centric aspect of it, let him react to that.
What I picked up on is, he is, I don't know how you actually said it, but it sounded to me like he was very definitive that it's gonna be his structure.
Yeah.
And how do we fit into it? We may not fit in, but if we have on the table everything, all the input, all the different, backgrounds that we represent and the expertise that we bring, can he deliver to what our needs are? Because we're the customer.
Right, and maybe it just requires prodding him a little, to think a little bit outside the box, maybe even just 1 or 2 meetings with just the board during a board meeting or a board retreat, going over all the information that he's collected, going over, again, in depth, the goals that were created and how, maybe that's would help us feel more comfortable with it and allow us to give us the input that we need.
So I guess I have a question. Given the timeline, do we, trying to break these into 2 separate decisions, does the timeline eliminate this as an option because we need something sooner? If it doesn't eliminate it as an option, then are we comfortable, or can we be, made comfortable with further follow-up on that? As I said, I think I'm at the point where I can be comfortable accepting that proposal. Understanding the pros and cons, I think because of his experience, we will have involvement, we'll be able to communicate these issues through that process. I think most likely it'll be a highly acceptable and great product. But can we wait a year? Because if he's saying it's a 2020 project, generally these things are 6 months.
He has a 4-month
4 months,
schedule
okay.
from when he is signed, is plugged in.
Right, so that's probably,
We're looking at spring.
So, well, if he started in, if he
I'm
can
thinking
start
it's
in
end of summer
January,
next year.
but.
Just in hope, maybe just in, well, that might miss the budgeting cycle for next year. I mean, we're doing budgeting now. I don't think we will have a result now. So we're really talking that would start significantly impacting things 2 years in the future. Now, that still may be the right choice, but that's, I think, for me, is that timeline meet our needs? Even if it is the best solution, or not.
Do we need to redefine the urgency as we see it now?
Well, I guess I'm looking for your input on that, because you work in a chaotic environment. And structure like this should provide is ultimately what you need. Can you wait a year plus to get that, knowing everything else? Are you willing, or are you saying to us, I need help sooner?
I don't know if this strategic plan is going to provide the help that I need at this time. I feel if we are going to do something like this, I feel that we should do it right. You know, I've seen a lot of things that have been done or not done. With something like this, I'm willing to wait. It's the question, are you guys? We do have a strategic plan. You know, I know when we came in, we kind of, I don't think we really tweaked it a lot. We went through it, but maybe that's something we do again, or take a look at it, you know, and pull out, you know, 5 things.
Try to be more realistic.
Yes.
Not trying to do everything.
Yes, because like I say, when I look at it, you know, it started back in 2012, and so everything just kind of got pushed and pushed and pushed, you know, and so kind of like the personnel committee said to me, 5 things that you can focus on. So why don't we, as the board, take that back page that has that list and what is most important to us in the next year. You know, we are working on things, you know, we do have things we're working on. So in a sense, it is touching things in that strategic plan. You know, and that for me is my guide. I've got it posted right next to my desk. That is my guide, what do I need to be working on, you know?
So what I'm hearing your recommendation is that we take a annual update approach to what we currently have, and then engage a year from now or next year on doing this proposal. Would that be your recommendation?
That would be my recommendation.
I could support that. That makes sense to me.
That sounds good.
How about you?
Agreed?
Yeah, I do agree. I wish we could flesh out a little bit more how it gets operationalized. Feel a little nervous about
Well, I
that.
think we can work on,
But
and
I'm-
what do we want from him? It sounds like this is something we can use, and we need answers to the
Right.
facility question. I mean, we keep putting things off because we don't have whether it's a master plan, a long-term.
Right.
But this will help us get to that master plan. Even if it's not, there will be parts of it that will be answered by this.
I agree.
And then we can know what decisions we're making on the ones we're like, well, we don't know what our plans are.
You
so.
will self-identify. We
I
will
think so.
eventually identify through the process.
I think I just would like it on the table and just reflect in the minutes that at some point, we, in order to honor the fact that we would like a board-centric component to this strategic plan, that we may have to do it ourselves. But when the process is over with David. Or to put us all on notice that we're going to have to work with David, to nudge him to have it more board-centric and written in tone and tenor, that it's a document for us to be using and implementing.
Well, it's not just nudging, it's willingness too. That's what I.
Well, if we're gonna say we're gonna hire him, if someone's ready to make a motion like that, then we're hiring him under the product that he has proposed. And I don't know if the motion could include verbiage that says that you're going to encourage him heavily to create a plan so that it's more board-centric. And Deborah, I will talk to you about that after the meeting, because I have some really good examples of what that means.
Okay.
But I think I would like the motion to reflect that we are going to be working with him to make it more board-centric.
Do you want to
and
make that motion?
Okay, are we ready for a motion, guys?
Well, let's give it a try.
Let's give it a So I would, so I'm sorry, the name of the company is escaping me all of a sudden.
MCLS, if you want to say Midwest Collaborative
Midwest
for
Library
Library
Services.
Services.
Do you have that? MCLS?
Yeah.
So I would like to move to hire MCLS to write the Manistee County Library Board Strategic Plan, starting in early 2020. With the stipulation that the board continues to encourage MCLS to craft a plan that is more of a plan that the library board is, I want to say engaged in, no, I want to say is, it was more that the library board is responsible for implementing. That's what I want to say, responsible for implementing.
Yeah.
I'll support that.
I mean, do you feel that we need to, you know, that you had a good discussion, I know you said you're gonna get back to David, you know, but is this, but you're feeling pretty good that he will be able to tweak that and then?
No,
Okay.
Roz, I don't feel good
Okay,
about it.
okay.
He was very clear that he said his proposal was his proposal. I mean, he wasn't like,
Right.
he's not hard like that. But he's like,
Right.
this is the product that we do. And I
Right.
said, well, I trust the product that you've been using for a lot of the boards. But he did say that he would consider and he would think about how to massage the strategic plan so that it was
Oh, I
more
guess
what we're looking for.
question I have is, when he talks about the strategic planning committee, which is who does the work, you know, he says it's 12 to 15 members with up to 3 board members.
Right.
What is his issue with having 5, open it to 5
He
board
doesn't,
members?
he told me that
That's not, okay, if that's not, oh, well, I have to do it, no, it can't be, as long as it can be, and again, we may not all be at every meeting, but then I'm comfortable with that input.
I will raise an open meetings act.
Which would be for 3, and it would be a
It would be
public.
for 3 too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
if there's
Public
3
and
or
public,
more, then it
sure.
has to be an open meeting.
Which I.
And that may not work for his process. So
Yeah.
he might have to limit it to 2, so that you can have the frank types of discussions.
But again, the board at those meetings is just one of many people, I mean, it's,
It
if
does-
he's having
if There's a
key staff.
majority of the
But,
board
no, I'm
present.
saying, no, it's gotta be open meetings, but I'm just
Okay.
saying, that might be fine, I mean, maybe
It
we
may
don't
be,
have,
it
yeah,
may be. It
because it's
depends
not
on
that the
what
board,
his
we're not, yeah.
process is,
So
whether or
is
not.
that okay if we ask for 5 board members and it's complying with the Open Meetings Act?
I think it's a
would think
great
it'd be fine.
amendment.
Well, I don't even have to be in the minutes, just in your conversation with him, is that, because that would take care of the board, you know, involvement.
I did not ask that particular question. Deborah had conversations with him about that. but
Yep, and that's where I said, he said that was totally
I'm
fine.
fine with all of the board.
Yep.
But I think the question though is, does he mind having to comply with the Open Meetings Act? Because that does put restrictions on him and it makes it a little bit harder on him. So will he be willing to go through those?
And I assume it just means we need to post it, and again,
Yeah, it's
you know,
only
we're
16
opening it
hours
up, you
before
know,
the meeting.
yeah,
that
it's not,
big a deal.
yeah, okay.
Are we ready to vote? Yes? All right, let's take a vote.
Well, do
Well-
we need a roll call on this? Since
That's
we're
what I was wondering,
approving-
because-
I mean, we're not
Yes.
sure. I mean, is this actually the contract that we're approving?
Well, we're not signed, yeah, we haven't signed
This
the
is a
contract.
signed
Oh, you're right,
proposal.
yeah.
This is a
Proposal, then I don't think we would, but if it comes back then with something that needs to be signed, we would then need another vote.
Right, oh, sure,
Right.
with a dollar amount. and-
Well, what did my
Or
motion
we,
say? Didn't it say to hire?
Yeah, higher.
okay.
So I made my motion to hire, so that's actually my
To
motion.
tell him that we're accepting
Okay.
his proposal, I mean, that's what I had to
Then
tell him.
I would recommend that the motion be amended to authorize our executive director to sign the agreement.
Oh, that is more appropriate, yeah. I would like to make that that amendment. Did you get that? So instead of to hire the company, to say to authorize our director to engage in a contract with.
Okay. I will change that.
And then I support that change.
Okay, then we continue with the roll call.
Boy, how complicated, so sorry.
Mara, you wanna start with roll call?
Well, I should ask me.
Barb? I'll say yes.
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 And does the
Alright.
contract have money involved?
Yes. Well, the proposal does, it's for,
Well, then you should have proposed up to a certain amount.
Yeah.
You missed that
Oh.
point. But that's fine.
so I'd like to
You
make
guys are
another
making
motion.
motions.
So I'd like to make a motion that, in the,
What is the amount in the, I don't
Yeah.
have
So
it.
it's 28,000, total not to exceed.
That's it, up to
so I'd like to make an emotion that that we direct our director that we authorize our director to engage in a contract with MCLS up to $28,000.
Actually, just so you know, in our finance policy, it's the board does all contracts. It's board signs all legal contracts. So really, yes, it may have the director's signature too, but it does have to be.
So it has to come back to the board anyway.
According to our, well, we'll be discussing our finance policy, but that is in the
I
first
mean,
page.
then,
So, signing contracts is the responsibility of the library board, so,
Forget I said that emotion, we'll get the contract and we'll.
sorry.
Okay, so I'll just,
I think we need to talk about that.
Okay, so what should we do? Should we have a
It's like
motion
a
that?
jury thing,
Well, I mean, we haven't approved that finance policy either.
Okay, how about this? So this motion is really that the contract that we're going to engage in with MCLS shall not exceed 28,000.
Whoever signs it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, can Helen read that back? I'm sorry, but
well,
you
then I,
read it back. Read it back, make sure we have the correct understanding.
so that the contract shall not exceed 28,000, correct? That's the motion, that's the last motion.
Yep.
First part.
First part.
Oh, we voted. The one
The
we
first
voted on
motion?
be- the one we
This isn't-
voted on before.
Helen, this is a second motion, and the
Second
motion begins by saying the board will not engage in a contract that exceeds $28,000 with MCLS.
Okay.
And we have to vote on
Another roll call.
it. It doesn't
it
hurt.
doesn't hurt. Did someone support that?
No.
Second
No,
motion?
that's,
I,
Oh, great.
Mary, which one? I,
Okay.
do we roll call now?
We're gonna do a roll
Motion
call.
for that on the 28,000.
Yeah, Tamara.
Yes.
Oh, Mary.
yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was rough. Sorry about
But,
that.
no, we got something
We fumbled
done.
through
We
it.
got, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
moving on.
That's a big.
And then we're gonna have some.
Okay, under new business. Review of the 2019-20 budget.
Deborah, you want me to start, or did you wanna?
Sure, go
talk
ahead.
about it? Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, before we give the budget, Deborah did provide a budget calendar, which has a number of question marks, because she has not been able to get the information from the county, because we are plugging into their process, obviously. But we're
She'll have
gonna,
it in a couple hours.
but the committee has been assuming it's similar to last year, so we've been moving ahead and making sure we've got all our ducks in a row. So we worked on this enclosed first draft of the budget. So the final, has the final budget from the previous year, where, as of May 20th, where we were in our current budget, and then red proposed budget is all the other numbers. Deborah and I had some discussions, and I don't know, I assume this is the same numbers that we saw at the finance committee, that nothing got
Yeah, with just
tweaked?
those couple changes that you had recommended.
Okay, so it is different from the one you gave out?
Huh?
So
No,
there were
no, it's
changes?
the same
Okay.
one that you guys got. There's no
Oh,
changes.
Okay, got it, all right, so,
These are, I don't have any figures from the county yet, so what Russ had told me to do was to tack on, what did I say, 2%?
2%.
2%, so that's what we have right now.
So, and we usually would be approving a tentative budget at our end of June meeting. So this would be, if you've had a chance to look at it, we can start, answering questions, tweaking it, and then have then a final budget for June,
If we
final
get those
tentative budget. Even if we don't, we still do a tentative budget, so it's, because the numbers are close, or should be close enough that it still will help us with our work and our plan for next year. So, I know I had some questions and comments, but I don't know if the group wants to.
I have questions and comments, but I want to kind of tie this back to our previous conversation. This is the primary tool we as a board use to implement our strategies. And we're kind of reviewing this without even thinking about, what does our strategic plan say? Are we accomplishing our goals? Our process is not flowing right. Now, because you post the strategic plan and you stare at it all the time, and you're primarily generating this, it is influenced by that, but we as a board are kind of, I don't know, say fumbling along, but.
I'm fumbling along too. To be honest.
So I just want to point that out, is this should be more driven to be accomplishing goals as opposed to, oh, what did we spend last year? Okay, that looks about the same, good. But
True.
having said all that, I do have lots of questions, and some of them maybe do tie into a little bit more, at least my perception of goals. So I don't know if we can
Let's work on income and bring up, various questions and anyone else's thoughts, and let's look at this and see if there's anything that comes up for discussion.
So on income, starting with the first number there, we just amended our current budget to increase the penal fines, and they have been trending up. So it seems to me that it would be logical that this budget would be the same number as what we just approved in our amended budget, which I think is 140.
I think 140 is a good number, changing that.
Unless there was some reason that some of those budget updates kind of didn't, probably just timing of.
And I know Deborah she likes to budget conservatively on income, but I think otherwise, but we need it to be, I think the 140 is probably more accurate.
That's fine. I would rather go in conservative, because look at what happened to us this year with the personal property tax reimbursement. You know what I mean? And so if something, they're talking about penal fines all the time, and they're not I don't know what the term I'm looking for. So you can't say just because we got 140 this year, we're gonna get 140 next year. And that's what I'm saying. If it doesn't come in at 140 and it only comes in at 125,
We'll be fine.
And then we have a discussion. The thing is, we expect 140 at this point for next year. When it comes in at 125, then we have a discussion saying, well, let's research trends. So it's important to be more accurate than safe, because we see that difference and then we can take action on it.
And that's why we traditionally do mid-year budget adjustments. It gives us enough time, roughly half the year left, to adjust based on things that were unforeseen, and you can take into account that. Unlike most other organizations that do their adjustments the last month of the year, which you're not really then using that as a tool to help you guide.
we just remember what FEMA, how you get your FEMA funds. If you don't see any changes in the courts, that's gonna be your number.
Right.
Pretty close. But if you get a new judge or the judge
Then-
is gone,
Right,
Things can
or the
change.
they
laws,
might sense or they might not sense.
or the laws change drastically enough that.
So that was my first comment. My second under income is USF reimbursement. There's no number there, but there's a comment, and the comment doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so, that's why I put the comment there, so we could talk about it.
Yep.
So, before, you used to get a check, which I still don't agree with what they did the prior year, that negative number, I still don't understand that. So, what happens now is the discount is reflected on the bills.
So we don't get a check, we
So
just
we
get
don't get a check,
smaller bills.
we get smaller bills.
Okay.
And so Dave and I just met with them a couple weeks ago to talk about some stuff, and so what we have to do is, figure out how we want to, document that.
Mhm.
So we're still working through that, so that's why I put that there, that's why there's no number
That's-
So
there.
we'll
That does
probably,
make sense
so we'll
then.
probably need to, eventually, it sounds like we'll move that line item
Right.
from income.
Right,
Okay.
My next question is on state aid to libraries. Is,
the number in 2017, 2018 is not accurate. And we
Okay.
found, because there was a $4,000 that
You
was
said brownfield development.
something
fund,
that was
something
put in
was
there that
wrong
shouldn't have been
place.
put in there.
okay, okay.
So minus 4,000 something from that number.
Okay, good.
So
Part of
the
the reason I
number-
was asking is that before you were here, Cheryl Mays
It's
had
under
communicated to us that the formulas were being reallocated such that we would be getting more. And I was just wondering if that more was reflected in that
It actually-
21,000, and then we just didn't update our budgets, but it sounds like it's reflected in what's budgeted, it's just
Yeah.
there was a mistake.
Yep,
It
and
just
I
says go
don't,
back far
I
enough.
don't have the number yet.
That's
I will
fine, that's fine.
get, but the
You-
number for this year is the accurate number, the number that we were given by the state.
Right.
And so I'm just going with that at
Yep,
this point.
yep, no, that makes sense, thank you.
Mhm.
The next question or comment on our income is payment in lieu of taxes, which is basically our PILT payment from the casino revenue sharing funds. Having sat through their last meeting where the new, the term escapes me, where you basically look at the value of something.
Assessment.
The new assessment
equalization,
came
or-
in and it is higher, so if anything, that number will go up.
Okay.
So I think would be comfortable budgeting,
40?
along the lines of whatever we got this year.
Okay.
So we're raising that to
And I don't know where this comes into play, but I recall reading it in the minutes, and I recall talking about it last month, is under the new act that was passed last year that allows the library to opt out of the tax collection from TIF districts, which in our county are the two DDA districts. We need to find out how to do that, and we need to find out what that financial impact would be, but that will be a positive goal, unless we decide that we don't want to, and we want those districts to continue to collect those dollars because we think they're doing good for them. And I say that because both Tamara and I sit in those districts and have a little conflict there,
Right,
so.
but we do need to research that and discuss, and that is an option, yeah.
So.
I know,
Try to keep your mouth closed.
I know
That
when
would be
I get the,
very wise.
when I get the report from Russ, it's got all the breakout on it.
Yeah.
And I know 2018, it was like 18,000 something.
But that might, again, you don't have the numbers from Russ, but that is, but again, if there's something we need to do, something we need to file with somebody to make that happen, you know, we need to understand that, otherwise we won't have that revenue.
The other item on income page that is the personal property tax reimbursement is, again, where David will hopefully research why we've gotten less this year and will we be at, do we think we'll be at the same level? So that we might in the next month have
Yeah.
more information
But until we
on that one.
do know that's
Yep,
the right
put that
number to plug in, yeah.
Yep. Okay, want to move on to expenses, we had a good discussion about, you know, the collections and the rationale behind those expenses, but any questions on the first, sorry the pages aren't numbered, but any?
I have one question under microfilm. A, it's seeing a significant increase. It's still a small number,
I
but,
see that.
A, why?
Okay.
But B, more, microfilm is not the current state-of-the-art technology to be doing this. Should we really be looking at digitally capturing the stuff we're microfilming and kind of making it available online as opposed to you have to come here and search through cabinets? I mean, that's-
Absolutely.
That's very 1970s.
And we've been having this conversation whether, you know, do we really need this? So we.
Especially as the cost is going
We
up.
are talking about that. The reason why the cost went up is we had to change companies. The company that had been doing it, they're no longer doing it. So we had to find a new company, and yes, we've been having these conversations.
I mean, I think it's
It's
an
a huge
incredible.
expense to take. I was working on this project in my last library. We were taking the current microfilm and going to have it digitized. It is a huge expense.
But that asset is
And then,
unreplaceable.
yeah, they're making like separate websites linked to your library website, and then, so there's, yeah.
I mean,
That's-
I would want to not stop doing that, because I think it is a huge asset to having that historical
Mhm.
archive.
Yeah.
But at some point, this is the wrong technology, and we need to think about how we migrate, and it probably will be very expensive to do.
You'd think it'd be a wonderful thing for there to be grants out there to help pay for, I mean, it's such
Right.
a resource, but, yep, okay.
But the changing company was the short answer to that, thanks.
Yep.
Yep. Any other questions on that first page of expenses? Two, we did talk about the capital outlay, and does someone have any, Barry, you got questions there? Because
I did, although we already talked about it earlier.
The
So-
number is there because, as we did with this year's budget, I was balancing the revenue, the expenditures. That's what was left, but of course, it's going to be different now. But Roz and I did have this conversation in our meeting, you know, and that's why I put it on here for the board to, you know, that ties into, which is what you were talking about, you know, what are our plans for 2019-20? And this is where this conversation comes in.
My first question was actually on a smaller line item, and that's parking lot. One of the things we need to do is we need to crack seal and restripe that parking lot. And I don't, and given your explanation earlier about what the current year's budget is for, I don't know if you have in mind what that $3,000 in this year's proposed budget is for, but that's where I would recommend it go to, because that's gonna lengthen the life of that asphalt, because asphalt is very expensive. Now, having said that, because asphalt is very expensive, I think we should have in our capital improvement account a line item there for parking lots that we start setting away some money towards each year, because when that does need to get replaced, it's a $50,000 to $100,000 project
Wow, okay.
to resurface a parking lot of that size. So it's something we should have it there. And again, it's part of that 5-year plan of, you know, this is something we know in the future we're going to have to spend money on.
We do
'cause
have
it's
it. Parking lot repair and maintenance.
Not
We
in
have
the,
$3,000 and we have.
that's
Yeah,
kind of,
But this, yeah.
Is it someplace different, Barry?
The
that
one
you're
where
talking
the-
about?
I'm talking about in our,
Project
back.
section?
And it won't be in this budget,
won't
no,
be-
it'll
it'll
be,
be in-
it's in
Well-
a separate, it's separate budget.
It's in this
Where we have the
liabilities
van
and
and road.
No, in the
equity.
back where the roof and the van are.
Yeah, the
Yes.
liabilities and equity,
So,
page
add-
11.
transfers
That's a great idea.
Yes.
Add a parking
So,
lot.
So you wanna add in
We-
there the project.
right,
part
we
of
already
the-
have roof, and we're starting to allocate money for that.
Right.
We already have the van. I think the parking lot is the same type of thing that
Oh,
will
okay.
require,
That's
you know, an
good.
expense along those lines. And it's probably got 5 to 10 years left, but it's something we should start saving.
I totally agree, but I'm just confused, doesn't this budget own it, doesn't it have a liabilities and equity?
No, that
No,
would
no,
be
it's a different,
It's
it's
a
a
different-
different account. It's a
Okay.
totally different account, so.
that is
There are transfers to and
transfers
from.
out later, where
Oh.
you basically put money
Oh,
into
okay.
those
Oh, right
projects.
there,
So if
okay.
we're spending 3,000 this year for curb,
This is
you know, in this
what I wanna
fiscal
add.
year, Barry?
Yes.
Okay, oh, so if we're spending our 3,000 budget this year for the curbing for the parking lot, is 3,000 enough for the crack seal at the
I think it
short
should
term?
be.
Okay,
I mean, without getting a quote and
close
really
enough,
knowing.
okay, all right, so that's
it's-
not a 5,000, 10,000.
I don't think it is,
Okay.
but
Okay.
again,
I
until
could
you
try to
get
get a
someone,
Yeah,
before.
well, work on the curbs first, because that's
Yeah.
gotta be done, so we don't need to know for, yeah.
No, I mean,
3,000 is ballpark.
if it ends up being twice
Right.
that, then it comes back to the board and we decide how we wanna handle it.
Okay. Mary, did you have other comments on that?
I can go down to computers now, this is the next section I have comments on, I don't know if you wanna, we're done with the capital outlay.
Just so you know, with computers, the first one, software is a 3-year contract.
That was gonna
And
be my
that
question.
was- So,
Yeah, I'm
uh-huh.
sorry, I didn't bring that
That-
information,
and
but
that's-
Pam puts together a thing for me, and, yeah, there's something with the deep freeze or something, and so, you know, all the stuff that we need, she's got laid out, so.
So, again, is this a new thing? Why is it suddenly hitting
I have,
so
in
much?
my notes
in-
I have, it's renewing a license for a 3-year contract, so I don't know if that means 3 years ago, we also had a
Yeah,
larger expense, that every 3 years it jumps.
that's what I'm guessing, yeah.
We're doing.
Okay. Then my next question is, my recollection is that our contract for our main system, $20,000 was coming due and that we were hoping to reevaluate that, but I'm kind of seeing a big number that says that we're just gonna
Because-
continue it.
We will discuss this in the technology committee.
Okay,
But we did receive the quotes, we know who we wanna go with, but the first year,
is
because you
higher.
have all
There's
of
a
the,
transition, data migration, all of
all of
those
that,
things.
so that's, yes.
So it's,
But after
it
that-
is still somewhat less, and it is intended that in future years it will be even less.
Very much less.
Good, good. Obviously, since there's a note here, board discussion, web services,
And I think I brought that up because is to redo the website and, you know, we've talked about, you know, we've had a lot of improvements to the website. We have talked about hiring outside help to do that. Is that something, you know, again, it ties into the strategic plan.
Yep.
So is that something we want to budget for?
I would say, I mean, and I don't even know, somewhere in this board pack, it might have been in our complement.
Oh, somebody about could use it, but yes, there was a.
Could use,
Yep. Yeah, uh-huh.
and I think Julie's response was that we're continuing to look at it. Yeah, I think that's, and 5,000 is not enough.
No.
Do you know how much? I mean, because you guys, before I got here, you guys were doing all of this, you went out for a
RFQ.
Right, right.
Right,
You
right.
never got quotes.
Correct.
Or, because that was website and it might have been even
Marketing.
a little broader.
Right.
And this
Yeah.
would be
Right.
more specific, yeah.
Yes.
A typical website is probably $30,000.
Wow.
The 10,000 was, the idea there is that we would do it over a couple of years to kind of spread out that cost as opposed to one big project. So, but, you know, that's what a typical institutional website, the city, the county, their websites ran along those.
To redo it from scratch, basically, not to keep tweaking the current
Correct.
format.
Correct, correct.
Okay. So I don't know if we're, you know, so is that, or is that for after we do our David Voda one? Like, is that when you spend the big money, when, because then you know what the public wants on the website? You know,
It is.
but,
The part I struggle with here is, at some point, I mean, just like with the physical aspects of this building, we just have to move forward. Same thing on the website, at some point, we just have to move forward. We can push it down the road forever, but that's where increasingly people are getting, I mean, we talked about it earlier, well, we should put a reference to the website because that's where you get our hours. I mean, it's all about that, but it's so much more than just having the information there. It has to be in a format that's usable and easily navigable. I mean, thinking about this morning, it was like, it would be like having our library and saying, oh yeah, we've got those books, but we're not really sure where it is. It might be on a shelf over there, it might be a shelf over there. And I kind of feel that's kind of how our website is. It's there,
right.
but it might be
Right.
here, it might be here, and that's not the way information is. It needs to be structured, it needs to be organized, it needs to be understandable.
Intuitive. So
And you're never going to achieve 100%, and I'm sure people can't find books, even though it's right there in front of their face.
So does the
but
tech
that's-
committee want to make a, you know, like a recommend, is this something you need to meet, or do
Again,
you want
that's,
to, you know?
this is board direction, is this a priority this year, given everything else? Deborah was saying earlier, just let's give her 5 things to focus on,
Right, so is-
not 25
okay.
things.
But I
And
do want
this-
to make a comment. I went to a marketing workshop down in Lansing a couple weeks ago that I helped create, and it was really interesting to hear the speakers that we had brought in. And I wrote it down somewhere, and I want to say this right. People are judging us by our website.
Mhm. Truly.
I don't know if those are the exact
I
words, but it's somewhere along that
Totally
line.
agree.
They're looking and they're judging us by our website. So we just had, you know, a patron say,
Yeah.
you know,
So you're-
and we've
And-
heard it before.
And it's probably the people in the community that aren't regularly using our services.
Yes and no.
I mean, I'm
Because
just
I
saying-
mean, I can
right,
give
no,
an
I'm just
example of a little frustration with a website I, you know,
Right,
have.
right. But
yeah.
my point is that those that are coming here are coming here. Those that aren't coming here, the first thing they're gonna do is look at our website, and if they're not happy with that, they're not gonna step foot in the door
Right.
then.
Whether they're visitors or they live in the
Right.
county, but they're just not patrons yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're using their taxpayer dollars, we want to be providing services to them, we need to not be turning them away. So I think that's a very
So with-
enlightening
So with this budget being, you know, from September of this year to, you know, September of next year, do we want to start working on redoing the, I mean, that is, you know, is that a board priority, and is that something you feel you sound like that workshop kind of got you fired up?
It did, when I'm hearing all these libraries and I'm just kind of like, you know, but there's many of us that were talking, you know, I mean, they were talking about, you know, a lot of libraries are creating marketing positions, you know, and that's a conversation we've had in our personnel committee, you know, and all these libraries are talking about, you know, how we just recently created this position because it's huge. you know, from your website to your Facebook to, you know, even having, you know, we've been doing a lot better with our flyers because we've got basically one person trying to do them, because you can't have 5 different people doing your flyers. You know, they all have to look the same. And, you know, there was just so much I brought away from that, you know, we really do need to get.
Evidently, you haven't talked to the county. We're buying, or doing a new website for the county. It's gonna be in the budget this year. We've talked about it every year, but we've got a different way to finance it, so it's gonna get done. Did you know about that?
No.
Well, see, it would've been great because you could have piggybacked with the county, probably still could, because quotes are going up, and talked to Great Con, and I can see that there's a lack of communication between you guys and what's going on over there.
Well, I know,
That's what you're supposed to come to these
Yeah, but-
meetings.
You're supposed to tell us.
Well, now you just told us.
Well, I know
We
that,
know now, so
I know
good.
there was a, RFP going out for text services that we were supposed to be included in
And this
on,
is
but.
the website, we're redesigning, we got an outdated website. Yeah. So, but just to let you know, you should piggyback, I don't know, 911's gonna piggyback on it too, for different services, so, I mean,
We might get a
write that down on a piece of paper, and these other things that you have that you need to talk to the county about. And Helen, when she's over to the court office, stick it in my mailbox, and I'll bring it up at the meeting. But you're definitely not communicating.
No, we don't hear, yeah. we
No,
can't
I'm
explain
sitting here
it's good
just
you're here.
listening, and,
Like, no, didn't know.
but maybe I can help you, maybe, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but.
I think we should increase the budget. I don't understand the implications, I don't know how much to put in that line item, but I do think it's a worthwhile thing.
What
Especially
number
since
would
it's
you-
a whole nother,
So we
year
have
out.
5,000, so.
I would put it back to the 10.
Put it 10?
Okay.
but I guess I also wonder, I love how we have the section that talks about transferring out to our special project section in our, under liabilities and equity that we, on our balance sheet. Is this a project?
It's not a capital improvement,
No.
no. It's not,
Okay, so
it's
it's
gotta be
only those that are capital.
things that are
improvements.
left,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
so,
I got it.
Good question, though.
All right. So it's not like we're saving money every year by putting $10,000
We
allocated
could
towards
do
it.
that, but it shouldn't really be under capital
Okay,
improvement.
okay.
Yeah, it would be a.
We could do it in different places. If
So
if
what-
you really think we need, that we're building up to a 50,000,
Well, that's
So,
what he
you
said,
know.
if he said $30,000, and then I'm confused because you said you guys put $10,000 in this line item, with the thought that we would slowly make sure that we'd have enough money for.
That we would do it over time.
but
You
you
would
gotta
do it
get some of
phase
the
it
work
in.
done.
But that's
But if
not- oh,
it's in
get
this
some of the
budget, you
work
gotta
done.
spend,
Yes.
you're
Oh,
supposed to
okay.
spend it, so, yeah.
Okay.
Because we have interesting, I don't want to say challenges, but because a lot of our content is now at least searchable or available electronically, it's integrating that website into our
Sure.
back-end systems. That is a unique set of things. And in version 1, you could not have that. You could push that back to a year later, and you just kind of, you get the look and feel, kind of the basic information there. So there are ways you can phase it in over a period of time.
But is that the way we want to go?
Yeah.
Or do we want to just put the big bucks in there and get it done?
I say put the big bucks in and get it
Well,
done.
I
Don't,
don't know.
be careful what you ask for,
Yeah,
because,
how much work are you, yeah.
because that's my point is, a good website is going to, a good website design process is gonna fundamentally question every service we do, everything we do, and ask
And
very
it's-
difficult questions.
And it's gonna take up a lot of your time, I mean, do you wanna be working on that for half the week for a number of weeks, you know, so that's the
It's-
other.
I've done one already,
It's gonna
so-
be, it's gonna be very
Yeah.
similar to the strategic planning process. So in some ways, those could go, I wouldn't do a lot of this work until after the strategic plan, because that's gonna tell us who we are targeting what information towards to then
Okay,
focus
so then
around.
we're making the decision to wait
Well,
A
but
year.
again,
No,
that
but
puts
start
this,
working on it.
right, that puts it at the end of this coming fiscal year,
So
Okay.
hopefully we'll
which
have the
is
strategic plan.
probably
Oh, so
then,
it's all gonna line up together, okay,
while it's fresh in our minds, that would be the time to do it.
okay.
And I don't know if
I'm
that's
gonna-
enough, there's so much that could change, but
Well, I'm
It's a
making a note to
placeholder.
remind us that we sometime in January, we start putting an RFP out for a website designer, so we can select someone. If we have, if you guys
Or
have.
maybe even earlier, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I think the tech committee needs to.
yes, that's.
So the tech
That should work
yes,
on it.
that-
but
that's
that's
a definite
definitely gonna-
referring that to the tech committee then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
website, yeah, I think that'd be
Yeah,
a great
RFP.
place
And
to get.
also-
Okay, okay.
I
Yeah,
also think you need to talk to the county too.
right, well, that's,
Well,
I think
I
that the
would,
definitely.
tech committee needs to really flush that.
you can make your own decision here, I'm not telling you.
oh, yeah, no, we
No,
need
we
to.
understand
But if
that,
we
but
get
I
a
think
discount
that-
by working with the same company
Well, that's
because
what we're
it's here,
getting at,
Right.
that,
we're
yeah,
gonna
that
find
kind
out
of
what
thing
it's gonna
makes
cost,
sense. Yeah,
and
no,
then you probably can piggyback on.
You're just
some
in the
of that.
process right now.
Yeah, we're in the process right now, but the money's gonna be there this next year. I'm not gonna,
okay.
but anyways,
Okay.
that'll be some.
Okay.
It's better to have more options,
Right.
even
Yeah.
if we decide that that's not the good fit for us, at least knowing that.
Okay,
We need-
can we
right,
move
we need
on
to-
these others,
This is
because
not
we still got a lot on
Yes, we
the
do.
agenda.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I
gonna
know
have to
it goes
leave you
slowly
here
in the
before
budget.
too
So-
long.
But on that same page, I know I've got some, Barry, you've still got a few.
So fine art appraisals for discussion.
Remember when I first got here?
Oh, I know.
Let's
I-
take, yeah, you don't have to explain.
I would
Let's-
say, let's eliminate that for now.
Agreed.
Is it
Okay.
something we wanna do? Yes, but it's so far down the list of priorities
Okay.
that.
Agreed.
Okay, my next question are on salaries and wages. So I'm seeing a 30% increase in salaries and a 10% increase in wages. What's driving that?
That was that position that we talked about.
Okay, so that would be driving the salary change. Why are wages up 10%?
Wages,
And 20% over the last 2 years?
um,
Now, I know the 2 year ago number was because we were really short-staffed, but last year's number is the budgeted number. Because I mean, with union contract and step increases, that would average about 2%.
I think the only, I'm trying to think of the last thing I had you run me, was that we currently have a part-time cert clerk, and I want to have a discussion with the personnel committee about making that a full-time position. That's the only change in staffing, other than that other position, well, that's understaffed. And then whatever the,
Okay. Good. Because this is the area, these increases are perpetual. You're locked in.
yep,
So, there's there's like $80,000 of increase this year in that area. That's a lot of money going forward. Every year, we can't spend on other things. I think we need to be very careful about evaluating that.
Can personnel committee work on that before we finalize
We
our
can. I think that's
budget
what-
and know,
we can-
because we get more rather than going into the details.
Yep,
of-
yep,
yep.
yep.
Yeah,
But-
okay, yeah.
Both of those explain the two halves, so that helps me understand.
The only other thing I have on this page is the backup to capital outlay and major capital projects, having 14,000 in there. I like to think with, again, I don't have the list of what facilities or strategic plan is saying we're supposed to be doing in the next year and a half, but that's really low amount. So I'm just,
Although, there's also the summer line, which is like
Right.
16,000
26, that 20, well, over here
for this
Manistee,
building, I think.
even more, yeah.
So that's, between the two, it's about 30,000.
Okay, so are
So-
we comfortable, we don't have any other projects for,
At this point, for draft, I'm comfortable. I think maybe
Okay.
next month
Okay,
It might make a little
okay,
More.
or not.
okay, we are on the,
Oh, because, under professional fee and services, we're going to have to add that $28,000 for the strategic plan.
oh.
I'm sorry, which
Oh,
line?
and that's back under fees and services on the page we were just on.
I think that's where that would go,
And, yeah,
wouldn't it?
Professional, yeah,
Helen?
so, yeah,
Yeah.
that, okay,
Holy moly.
yeah, that's, yeah. Okay. Okay. And then on the third and last page of the itemized expenses, one note I have from our discussion is that the programs also include Friends of the Library designated gifts, so we actually are spending more on programs than what's shown there, but that's because those show up in different places, so.
I only had one question, and that was the amount for hoopla.
That hoopla is based on usage. Actual numbers, and we have seen an increase,
Okay.
so.
The reason I start questioning that is, in looking at the statistics, our hoopla numbers are about 1/3 of our overdrive numbers. But it looks like the cost per item under hoopla is much more expensive than overdrive.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that breaks out, but
So,
I can
It
do
just,
more research. And I don't know either.
so there's no cap, it's just, you know.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because I know I was talking to some libraries, and there might be a cap that we can, if we do have a cap, we could lower it.
Yeah, I just, so that's not a conscious decision, it's just reflecting usage and our the current
Yep.
structure.
Yep.
Okay.
In the transfers out, the savings that we're doing for the roof, you we're just bringing it down just to, being close to having enough money for the roof? or-
We haven't done the one for this fiscal year. David recommended that once we really know what the property tax final numbers are, which hopefully will be in the next month or two.
Okay.
So we need to move that over before September, and then this would be for the next year. And that, from what we've talked about, 25, 30,000 is the roof number, and so we're getting between
close
that
to it.
one, you know, and I might, if we have a surplus, I may say maybe this year doing, getting 10,000. We'll see what our numbers
Okay.
look like for this year.
And this kind of ties multiple conversations.
Can I stop you for a minute? I would like to hear your last comment again, as far as, if we're getting close.
Well, I thought we talked always about a number of about 30,000. I was hoping maybe before this fiscal year's over, we could move 10,000 into it, and so, but we have to.
And we currently have 21,000.
Right.
Okay, so we're getting.
So
close.
with the budgeted 7, that's 28,000. Another 5 next year would possibly push us over.
Yeah.
My comment was going to be, again, thinking about long-term planning. We're probably at the point right now where we should have some sort of more formal estimate.
I'll be right back, but the county's talking 2 to 2.5% raises this year. For your numbers.
2 to 2.5, okay.
I went with 2, but others were 2.5, so it's gonna be in that range.
But that's not the union.
That's not the union piece.
There's a already
Right.
set.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
So if we've got a item for roof, we've got an item for van, and if we, are thinking adding parking lot as another item, and then as we start thinking of these things, I think that list should become longer. We probably should spend a little bit of time asking someone, what is a realistic cost for this? Because is 30 to 35 right, or is it 70? And, in a van, I mean, how much is a replacement van? So that we kind of know what we're targeting for these projects.
Right.
that just basically needs asking someone who kind of does that.
Right, what they think.
Say, we're not looking
You know,
for
we're not
a
looking
real
for a
estimate,
quote, we're just
right.
really a
No.
ballpark number so we can start saving.
Well, we need a realistic number for what is today, so then we can
Yeah.
go forward to adjust.
But we're not asking someone to come out and say,
Assess.
crawl up on the roof and give us something that they're willing to commit to.
Because the roof, if I remember though, we're getting pretty close to, was it the 20-year? I can't remember
Yeah, I
where we
mean,
were.
there's a war-
I mean, like, it's
there's
gonna happen in the
technically a
next
warranty.
few years, you
Well-
know, I mean, it's,
That's when the warranty expires. If it's good material, it could last another 10 years. We don't know,
true.
but that's why we're planning for that.
Any other questions? So obviously this, the budget as it was printed had a net loss of 12,000. We've already changed some numbers, so we don't really know what that final will be. Anything else where you have comments on at this point?
Now, Ross, would you just remind me of our process, when we look through this, we're gonna have another chance to look this over as things are, we have a committee, the finance, or, I'm sorry,
Okay, let me,
The-
yeah, good,
the,
yeah, let me, okay, I don't think, the next thing after this was, does the finance committee need another work session? I don't think the finance committee does, because we're really not making, unless Deborah, would you, if you wanna have more discussions, because I think
I
there's a-
think I may need some help,
Okay.
because, yes.
Oh, sure, oh,
Yes,
then,
if we could.
okay, then the finance committee will have a work session, we bring back another, from that tentative one to the board at our end of June meeting. We would approve a tentative budget, so we have it ready to go to show the commissioners, the county. But again, then it's, we don't really approve it until August.
okay, because the personnel committee has to actually meet in here too in this timeline to go over the
Personnel.
The personnel stuff, yeah, thank you.
So we have a few times
So
to
we got a few
tweak
times,
it. We're gonna
okay.
tweak it in June, and then if we need to in
Okay.
between, and then certainly for the August public hearing.
So I'm gonna get us all a refresher on the strategic plan, so we have it in front of us, so we can kind of look at it, just so that we have another opportunity to look at, whatever the heck we put in there as projects.
When you talk to Dave, you mean?
No, for
For
our
us.
old one, yeah, for us, so
Okay.
we
So
can
that when
kind of
we're trying,
benchmark it.
as it may be, especially with the 28,000, we might have to start cutting some things back.
Yeah.
How do we prioritize that? We should be following through on, you know, what the strategic plan
So you're
said.
gonna be putting something together for us for the next meeting?
I'm just gonna pull it out
A copy of it.
and
Yeah,
get it
just
to you.
so-
The current. Okay.
Current one.
Just so that
Current
we're,
one. But yeah.
it's at
With
forefront of our mind.
additional comments or
No, I'm not gonna do
Just-
anything to it.
just open for discussion for next month?
Yeah, just so we can benchmark it, but it
I
does
mean-
look like we need, the tech committee needs to meet to talk about the whole website stuff, to talk about that. Is there more discussion that needs to happen with that kind of project before we approve a budget, or are we fine? I just would hate for us to approve the budget without all of our projects thought through.
But I mean,
So we can
it's a
never
planning
just-
tool, you
Yeah.
never
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Lock it down.
But you're right, I mean, the more we can get in here, the better, but
Yes.
we can, but it is
Okay.
not set in stone. But we should expect to,
Okay, okay.
Right, okay, great, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Roz, that was
That's
a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That was a lot.
Great.
Thanks for the coffee bar, because I need it to
Yeah.
get through the rest of
Yeah,
the meeting.
So
My
I was
God.
just wondering, do you want me to continue to pick this up,
If you
or?
don't mind, or would you like it to rotate?
I don't mind, because you know, it's on my way here. Unfortunately, I noticed that it gets cold in there, so.
It's fine, it's doing its job.
Well, that's kind of what I
I'm
thought.
gonna bring my own cup though, if you're gonna bring it every time, thank
Well
you.
put. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just
Okay.
don't know, I mean, I was beginning to wonder if I should not bring it in,
Bring
or.
it, if you can bring
Really
it in,
appreciate
please
it, if
bring
you
it
can
in,
do it,
thank
that's
you.
very nice of you.
The
Thank you.
caffeine is not temperature sensitive.
Yeah, where, those of us who need
Some of the best
caffeine,
coffee
yeah.
is the cold coffee,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Well, they're really advertising cold brew now.
Alright,
Okay.
so where are we at
Are we-
now?
We've beaten up number A,
We're at B.
number B, motion to approve patron code of conduct.
So,
Have we all had a chance to,
if I could ask the question,
okay,
most of our policies are very short and to the point, and this is like, whoa.
yes.
Mhm.
And it says, since it says patron code of conduct, who is the audience of this? And one would say from the title, oh, our patrons. Are our patrons supposed to know all this? And it just, how is this?
It's for staff.
It's
it's
for
not-
staff.
But if a patron asks, am I allowed to do this? May I bring in my, emotional support animal? I mean, yes, it can, it's both for patrons and for staff.
It's gonna be a
It's a guide.
reference tool, a guide for both.
And we had a policy, this is a replacement.
We had a very short policy that did not
This is
touch
10
on a
10
lot of
years
the
old.
things that we deal with on an ongoing basis. And I said to the staff, well, why don't you have something, you know?
Right,
And
right.
so that's what
Came
was
out.
the driving force behind this. Because we run into these situations and staff does not know how to, you know,
Okay, so
And they have
you
nothing to support
you
them.
answered my primary question. This is really, it's the staff that needs to know this backwards and forwards.
Yep.
Or,
yep,
Yes.
and it gets communicated to patrons when they ask questions, about things. So
It's also-
I'm just trying to understand how it fits in.
it's posted for patrons.
Right,
If
obviously.
they want
yeah.
to,
Be on the website.
Be on our
Somewhere. It's
website.
hidden.
This was actually, we borrowed it.
So you like it?
And we, could talk with other library directors.
Okay.
I ran it by Cheryl Mace. And then I sent it on to the library attorney. And when I went to the conference in Gaylord at the end of April, she actually was a speaker there, and she kind of touched on this, so kind of the one that we, we're using is one that's being used by a lot of libraries.
We also,
So-
we checked the internet and we got a flavor of what is going on nationally. There's been humongous changes in what libraries are and are doing today versus what our policy was 10 years old or something.
And we had we had at least 2 meetings with a lot of discussion on this, so the board, the committee did recommend, we were giving this.
Yeah,
for
there's been a lot of
approval.
time put into this.
Yeah, no,
Well, great, then I make a motion to approve the patron code of conduct policy as presented.
I second that.
Oh,
And I would just like for discussion to say, unfortunately, this day and time, you have to itemize all of this out nowadays.
Yes.
I'm finding that when you're in public places, it needs to be itemized out.
yes, good comment. Ready for a vote on this?
All
Aye.
in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, now, a motion to approve the financial policy, also enclosed.
I guess one question that came up earlier was on the first page under general accounting principles, number 7 you will see is the issuance and approval of legal contracts is the responsibility of the library board. I think we basically took the current financial policy, which was 7 pages long and just really hard to read and had a lot that was out of date. So that was in there, so that was just something that got carried over. So I don't know if that is, earlier.
I think that that's fine, because if it's our responsibility, that doesn't mean we can't delegate that. Which is
Exactly.
what
Good
earlier
point.
we did in the motion. So I think that that's fine.
Okay.
This is kind of more a coverall if we forget to include something in the motion.
It
It's
said-
here in the policy that we've adopted, so.
Just a couple of notes. One thing, we had a good discussion with Dave about so So we did tweak a lot of the numbers on what expenditures, when do we need an RFP, et cetera. Under 5, it goes more detailed about purchasing for the staff, and I know that's something that Deborah brought up some good questions about, is our process the best one, and I think she and Dave are gonna look at that further and just say, yeah, the way, because we do, right, from what you tell me, the purchasing generates a lot of paper, can that be tweaked? But at this point, that still kind of has the old, our current way of doing it. We haven't made any changes, but, you know, maybe that will be something that could come down the pike.
I was questioning the dollar amounts in the purchasing policy. They seem low for,
And we
So-
bumped them up.
well, so for example, anything over $1,000 requiring 2 estimates.
Which includes going on the internet and printing up, but, yeah.
But still, that seems,
Okay.
that seems low. It also seems low from my perspective that the director is only authorized up to $1,000. I'm thinking in the context of my daytime job is 3,000. I think it should be 5,000. And then there's another distinction here that this doesn't really talk about that I think is important, and that is if something is budgeted versus not budgeted. Because if something's budgeted, it's almost as if the board has approved it. And some, or we might have lean or less stringent requirements for budgeted items versus non-budgeted, up to some point.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I'll just take, for example, no, I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are things in our current budget that are more than $1,000 that you're not coming to us every month for our approval. And that's with the new numbers. So if our current practice doesn't align with what's being proposed here, that says that this probably isn't quite the right fit. I just think that maybe a little more thought should go into that. Now, having said that, since this is better than the current version, I'd still support that we approve this. But I'd say maybe the finance committee could maybe have a little bit more conversation about the specific dollar amounts and specifically how does it relate to budgeted versus non-budgeted items.
Well, non-budgeted items, you can't spend without, I mean, is that an emergency expenditure? I mean, if we don't have a line item and all of a sudden, I don't know, there's a landscaping fee, I mean, that
Right.
you do.
Well, so for example, so if it's a non-budgeted item but it's less than $1,000, this doesn't say the board needs to approve it. And it should be in that case.
Okay.
If it is a budgeted item and it fits within the budget, does the board need to approve it potentially again, or is the budget sufficient, support
Okay,
for
got
that?
it. Now I understand that, yeah.
It's just clarifying those items.
Yeah, okay.
And I think there is a dollar amount that regardless of whether it's budgeted or not, the board has to approve it. Because there are line items that are budgeted that are very big.
Okay.
And if, I'll just take, again, without the budget in front of me, but let's say that there's I'm sure there's a line item in there that's more than $25,000. The expectation is that that's probably being spent over time in 1,000 here, 1,000 there, but there's nothing that says, oh, well, if it became we're just gonna do a one-time 25,000 thing, yes, the board should be saying that's out of the ordinary, so.
Okay.
So, again, I'm battling.
So what we're
So it's
gonna
gotta go
do,
back to the finance committee?
No, I would recommend, I'll make a motion that we approve the
Okay.
revised financial policies. Not part of my motion, I would request that the finance committee still dig in, we can make changes in the future.
So you're actually asking, this to be, we're approving it today,
My motion is to approve what is here today.
and then ask for it to be reviewed by the.
Again, that's not part of the motion, that's
Okay.
just a comment.
I don't know,
Because I
Ross,
think
what do
this
you
is,
think?
I think
Should
this
we
is
just have
better.
a meeting and review it, or accept the motion and?
Would that be an independent decision on the part of the committee? And we're approving today the policy,
Okay.
and then whatever the
And then we
committee
can
does.
decide when our priorities, is
Yeah.
this something, or do we need to just work on budget next time and just table this for a few months, so, but we will put it on our to-do list.
Yes, I
Heaven
think it
knows
should.
there's enough on your plate, so.
Exactly, it should be prioritized in, it's better than what we have, therefore let's get this approved.
I'll
Board so
second that.
decides.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Let's see if that helps.
That's what I was looking for, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
There's some of this stuff, I don't know,
Yeah, it's pretty much the one
we haven't had a meeting yet.
where I need to take it to the, to you.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Hey, bye-bye,
Thank
take
you.
care, Richard.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, motion to approve new carpet in young area, young adult area.
Okay, so when you guys originally approved the project, the carpet was not a part of it. And as you all know, we've been discussing carpet and paint for the last year. And so, we've talked about doing this in pieces. So this is a small piece, it would be, that back, where the teen area is, that piece back there, that I thought that we could do at this time. It's a small amount, and it's a doable project, kind of like the
Includes the
reading
stairs,
was.
correct?
No, that's the tech room.
Okay.
Okay, so just help me out,
Mhm.
because you know how I
Yeah.
think.
Yep,
It fits the overall scheme,
yep, you guys
Color.
approved that last year.
and it's all part of at
Yeah.
least that part
Yep.
of the plan. It's
Yep.
just, okay.
Yep.
So I would we even wrote one emotion out.
Now, I just have a comment, because when I looked at this, Classic had a 3,743 estimate, and Hagelin had 6,000.
And it's just like with all, both of them got the same, they both came in, they got the same things, and on my list, they did each piece. And it's interesting to see the different pieces and the different amounts.
Well, and so I contacted them. And so when I contacted Hagelin, they did it from wall to wall. And they came in at 96 square yards. Where Classic did it from post to wall and came in at 50 square yards of carpeting. And that's where the difference in the cost is, because one is at 50 square yards and Hagelin's is 96.
That's interesting.
So, it's,
What did you want the project to be? Was it going
So-
wall to wall or post to wall?
so, you're talking another 46 square yards to do the entire area underneath the.
I guess I will
area.
have to reach out to them and find out, make sure that they have the right measurements then.
Right,
Oh, okay.
because my concern is that somebody didn't get the communication, and communication is not just verbal, it's listening also, so. That,
Shall
so,
we defer this one then?
No, how about if can we make a motion that basically allows Deborah to do the work she needs to do to make sure that the two companies understand the dimensions, they understand the project appropriately, and then chooses the company that fits, whatever, we could either say the least amount, or the one that she feels would be the best. It's carpet.
Dollar amount, put a dollar amount in the motion.
I don't even know if we can put a dollar
Because if
amount
they're gonna
here.
change, if they have to change
Change
their
their-
quote, we don't know the dollar amount, so.
Right. But the other
We
thing
could put
is,
a not to exceed $6,050.
That's what I'm.
Oh,
Okay.
oh,
Well,
yes,
sure,
that makes
okay.
sense.
Taking the
So-
top number.
Okay,
and
I
the
gue- I
other
guess-
thing, I did get back to Hagelin and tell them the difference. I did tell them that Classic Carpeting did it from post to wall. And that's when I found out they did it wall to wall. So they do know the reason why there was a big discrepancy.
You know,
So-
Barbara, I think it's so great that you did that investigation like that.
Well,
But I
I
just
didn't
have
have
to
enough
wonder if part
information.
of our, as our board, our issues is maybe we should have talked to Deborah to express our concern about
Was
the.
that under the facilities committee
Or
though?
was that part
Yeah.
of
No,
the work plan?
No,
No, it wasn't, I
Oh,
just,
Then you really,
Yeah, 'cause
well,
I'm
this
just
was like
wondering.
yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, but
Well,
when
still,
I-
I'm kind of wondering
Yeah.
if part of our,
oh,
as the board and our responsibilities, I think it should have been directed to Deborah to have her make those kind of phone calls.
agreed.
Although I have to tell you, your sleuthing is fantastic. But if you were trying to find out additional information, I think probably should have said, Deborah, this doesn't look right, you gotta.
Agreed. We can't
Okay,
just board members.
I will
do
do
that.
this, it's
Yeah,
just
but
that
I mean,
I'm
it's
so
awesome sleuthing.
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
so used to doing, I'm
Yeah.
so independent.
I know.
And I
Yeah.
know
Because like we got,
Yeah.
part of working as a team is kind of like, she's our team leader, and we gotta say to her.
Maybe this
I will
doesn't
take
look right.
care, I will go through you next time, Deborah, and I
Yeah.
apologize for
Yeah.
that.
But I'd love to, I compliment you though for your sleuthing. Because it does point out that we've got two bids that are not, they're not apples to apples.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would like to make a motion though, do you have more?
I was gonna make a motion.
You make the motion, and
I'd like
follow
to
through.
make a motion that we authorize our director to acquire carpet for the young adult area, accepting the lowest bid not to exceed $6,050.
I will second.
6,050 or 500?
6,050.
50.
Yeah, that's where they were.
That's exciting. Probably a roll call vote there. Yeah, yes.
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 Yes?
Yes?
Okay, thank you.
School beans. I have to go use the restroom.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, you can either start the video without me.
Then there'll be a race. Well, I just spent 3 days in the car driving, I was like, okay, we're not stopping for that, Yeah,
And then sometimes you reach a point where.
it's like, no, we're stopping, we're stopping.
Today speaking with our Executive Director, Sally Gardner-Reed, and we'll be talking about working effectively with friends. Sally, we've both done a lot of work with friends groups over the years, and we know that when friends and trustees work together, that they really do great things for their library. But they really do have different roles, don't they?
Yes, they do. They have very different roles. As we've talked in the past, governing boards of libraries, for example, have a huge amount of responsibility. They are fiduciaries for their boards, and that means that they have responsibility for the entire assets of the library. They hire and fire the director, they set the policy, they're responsible for the facilities, they're responsible for the collections. It's an awesome amount of responsibility. The Friends, on the other hand, do the wonderful work of raising a lot of money for the library to provide for those items that are not otherwise available in the library's budget. So it's a great thing. It's a great partnership, different roles, but a great symbiotic relationship.
So even though their roles are very different, are there ways that they can and should work together to benefit the library?
Absolutely. Both groups represent the community, and they have a wonderful opportunity to promote the library back to the community. Now, the trustees will often do this in a more formal way because they are advocates for the library's budget on a yearly basis. They will often be visiting the EIPs every year. They'll know the people who fund them on a first name basis. They'll be making regular visits to them. So it's perhaps a more political role that they'll play in promoting the library. The Friends are on the ground. They're doing those fundraisers, used book sales, really the grassroots sort of thing. So very often their promotion of the library will be more informal and yet more grassroots oriented. And so both of them will be doing a lot of promotion of the library, which is great. And if there's a formal need to do advocacy or fundraising, suppose there's a capital campaign afoot, or if there's a need to really raise the library's budget or stave off a proposed cut to the library's budget, it's usually the Friends and trustees who join forces to do a very concerted effort at fundraising or advocacy campaign, working very closely together. And when they do join forces, they are often extremely successful. I've seen it time and again. It's a wonder to behold.
What happens if trustees and Friends don't work together on such campaigns?
Well, I think without partnership, those campaigns are going to suffer because it really takes a united front from all library supporters. And it's hard to understand why they wouldn't. Usually if they don't, it's because there's some disconnect between the trustees and the Friends. And it's hard to understand why that happens. It's usually bad blood, it's a misunderstanding, it's often very much just a personality difference or holding of a grudge between the library or the trustees and the Friends. And we have talked in the past about the trustees being responsible for that duty of loyalty, which is to put the library first at all times and their own personal feelings and grudges and self-interest behind that. And I think that that should be also incumbent upon Friends, that they should always put the library first. And if they can't, I would say that they should probably get off the Friends and join volunteer for the Humane Society or the Red Cross, because it does the library no good whatsoever for any volunteer, whether it's on the board or on the Friends, to not put the library first. That is a disservice to the library. It causes dysfunction and a rift, and no one benefits from that.
That brings to mind another question. I've heard from time to time from trustees that the Friends are saving their money and not spending it on the library, either because they don't agree with the direction the library is taking, or they don't want to support what the director wants to spend the money on. And the trustees are asking if they have the authority to force the Friends to spend that money.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Actually, they don't. Most Friends are 501c3 organizations, which mean they are autonomous and separate from the library and the library trustees. And that's actually as it should be. We actually support Friends getting their 501c3 because it protects their money actually from the city and county governments, especially when the library is part of a city or county entity, because we do know that sometimes their money can be at risk to those entities. So it can be a challenge for trustees, and unfortunately, they probably need to work in another way with their Friends to help them understand how important it is that they spend that money on the library. And I would say that I think it's a breach of faith when the Friends don't spend money on the library, because those who give money to the library, to the Friends, either through their membership dues or by buying used books, think that the money that they're donating is going to the library. They don't think it's going to a bank account. Nobody wants to donate to a bank account. So really, it's a breach of faith between the Friends and the donors when they're not spending that money.
What do you suggest if there is a disconnect between the library director and the Friends that does not seem resolvable?
First of all, I think that Friends and the director and the trustees should probably try to get together and should see if there isn't a resolution. So for example, there might be an opportunity to do sort of a low-key conversation, maybe a facilitated conversation, maybe something like a potluck, where they have some communal we love the library type of thing, and talk about where the library is going, discuss a strategic plan, and allow those Friends to have an opportunity to try to see where they fit in to making the goals happen. See the direction the library is going in and see how they can help achieve those goals. And it would be wonderful if that could happen. And if in the end, the friends see better where the library is going, why the director is asking for what she or he is asking for, and now feel more comfortable giving money to support that direction, that would be wonderful. And then the director could sort of create a new practice of meeting with the friends every year to say, here's what we see in the year ahead. Here's what we're expecting on our horizon. We're noting that we are seeing, for example, a lot of new Vietnamese families moving into our community, and we're really not prepared for that in terms of our collections. We know that we need more ESL books for these kids, English as a second language, and we don't have the budget for that, so we're going to probably be looking for your help in this area. Well, once the friends have been brought in at the bottom, stages, they're going to be much more willing to support this new collection than if the director just pops in 6 months later and asks for $10,000 for a new children's collection and hasn't explained why they're heading in this direction. So I think that that's a new best practice, and then the director can come with a wish list every month to the meeting based on the strategic discussion they've had at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Now, what if that process, that coming together, just doesn't work and it's still unresolvable?
And sadly, sometimes that really does happen. Not often, but sometimes there's just no meeting of the minds. In the case of a governing board, one of the most precious assets of a library is its name and reputation, and governing boards have the responsibility to protect that. When there is a rift so deep that there is no coming together, it's important for the trustees to recognize the potential that has for the harming of the library's reputation and name, because sooner or later those kinds of rifts often become public, and the friends will discuss out loud their dissatisfaction with the direction the library is taking, and that's really bad for the library. So in those very unusual, tough cases, my recommendation is for the trustees to let the friends know that they can no longer use the library's name in its fundraising, and therefore really tell the friends to cease and desist. This helps protect the reputation and name of the library, and it also opens the door for a new friends group to use the library's name and really raise money that will help the library.
What are some positive ways that the trustees can work with and help support the friends on an ongoing, regular basis?
That's a good question, because of course the best way to prevent the worst case scenario is to avoid it in the first place. And there are some things the the trustees can do. The first is for the trustees to join the friends financially at the highest level they are able to, and donate at the highest level every single year that they can. They should attend Friends functions as often as they are able to. If they have an opportunity to introduce a speaker, for example, at a Friends program or MC, they should be very sure to let the audience know that the Friends brought this program to the library and praise all the work that they've done. Perhaps they want to write the occasional letter to the editor about how wonderful the Friends are and how generous they are to the library. They should have a place on their agenda at all the board meetings for the Friends president or representative to come and talk about what they have been doing this past month and what money they have spent on the library and how important that's been for the library, that sort of thing. So to engage the Friends and recognize the Friends, and then also support them financially through their dues.
Thank you, Sally. That was a great discussion about how friends and trustees can work together to really benefit the library and move the library forward. And for our viewers, I'll let you know that we have compiled a list of resources. If you're looking to start a friends group, or you have one, or perhaps you are in that difficult situation Sally mentioned, we have a list of resources to help you address that continuum of needs. Your director will provide you this list of resources. We encourage you to look them over, read through them, and if you have any questions, discuss those with your library director. Thank you.
Well, that was great, thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, I would certainly recommend all of us, if, as she said, at any level, that we, for all members, have membership in the Friends. That doesn't mean you have to go to meetings, but that would be a great time to support. Or to, I know we're all busy people, but if they always need help at their book sales, the big Manistee one on July 4th, the Bear Lake one, the others, if ever you wanted to put in a couple hours working, I bet they'd be happy to have.
I think that's
additional
wonderful.
help. And they get to know you a little.
I actually let Marion know that I was available.
Good, okay.
So I was, so I
She's
don't
not
know
there
about
yet.
any of those types of opportunities, and I liked her suggestion about putting the Friends on our agenda.
We tried that.
So we've invited?
We've invited.
Oh,
But I think
okay,
our,
I'm gonna cross it off my list
yeah,
then.
but you know, and I think there might be a point
It's not
where
like
that
they're
might be
answering
worth
to us,
doing
but-
again, but yeah, I mean, I don't think they're terrifically motivated to go to another meeting a month, but we should always let them know they're invited, and at some point, you know, maybe that would happen.
Is it
So,
something we could put on the agenda just to remind them that we'd love to hear from them? If they don't show up, then they don't show up.
They
but
don't
it's-
see the,
that's-
well, they don't look at the agenda, so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if
I
we went and
personally
showed-
invited them and they have, no one wants to.
At the moment, and that could
Okay, that could
change with,
change.
you know,
Okay.
yeah, so, but it is something, in a way, I think we've got, you know, good communication, and I think we can keep increasing that. Both
Well-
them having information about what we're doing, and for us to have more information.
So
about
as
what
a
they're
trustee,
doing.
how can I understand what the Friends are doing and to know how I could volunteer my time and services to their efforts?
Well, I think Barb is probably gone to more meetings than I have lately, but we are
Oh, no,
both
I
fairly,
haven't.
but Frida and Deborah, of course, goes, but sometimes she doesn't stay for the work session, which is sometimes when you're dealing with the books is when you find out things. I suppose, you know, we could be reporting more, like if you know that, hey, there's a book sale next month, please go and shop, sign up to work, publicize, here's a handout. So we probably could bring more information about the Friends,
Right.
so they don't have to.
There is going to be a huge book sale on Friday, July 5th.
Oh.
Okay, so is there some way we could have on our agenda, even if it's not somebody from
It could be
the
a-
Friends? Could we put on our agenda a Friends
Update.
update or, yeah, just an update? And then if you guys went
Yes.
that month, then you could update on what you
Yeah.
heard. No, it's not like you have to, but if you happen to have.
Or Deborah having been there. so
Or
yeah,
Deborah?
you want- Yeah, I think that,
So could we add that to the agenda then, a Friends update?
Actually, most of these in the back.
Knowing that it's really just us board members reporting on it, or Deborah, on what
okay,
they.
that's why you.
Right, so that's why I'm not here, so.
Got it.
Yeah.
Because I figure we need to be.
Okay, all right. So thank you for all this other stuff. What do we have here? Those are nice photos.
Look at the numbers.
Yeah, I think the numbers are amazing.
What I wanna know though are these teens. So no offense, it could be an adult that thinks it's great, but really what I care about is, does a teen like it? Is there any way for us to
Probably
keep?
both, because the visual is probably from an adult,
Probably.
and the teens just wanna know what's available. You know, taking your son's comment in,
Yeah, and I
Consideration.
appreciated his comment, so
Yeah.
it was positive and supportive. What do other people think?
but you
Other
know,
teens.
how many kids are really gonna go up to an adult and say something? You know, it's.
I wonder if there's any way we could find out if our efforts are actually speaking to them. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it?
But I think the teens do use it, so I think.
Well,
Yeah,
what I
but
wanna know
I-
is, do they actually, and do they appreciate it? So is there some way that,
That's
let's just
teenage.
think about that.
It's teenage. I think the fact that they're using it
Yeah.
shows appreciation, but.
So if you like it, take a gummy bear. If you don't, take a red gummy bear. If you don't like it,
Uh-huh.
leave it. I don't know, something.
Most of us have lived through teenage years, so. Anyhow, okay,
Those are great.
we are done with that part. We are down to board trustee comments. And I have some comments, but, you know, anybody else have comments?
Summer reading programmer sure looks great. I'm really impressive. So, that's my only comment.
I guess just a comment about this meeting. Even though it took us 3 hours and we had many returns. I think we actually approved everything that was on the agenda to approve, which isn't always the case in these meetings. That's often we like, oh, let's talk about this more. So I think
I'm really glad that we're moving forward.
maybe we're making some progress as a board.
Okay, my
Even though
comments,
Deborah
yeah.
is maybe scratching her head, what is this board up to?
I didn't think we were that bad. Don't disparage us.
All right, I'd like you to hear me out, because my comments address what happened today, as well as what occurred during the February meeting. Unfortunately, I've, been out of pocket for another meeting, but what I did in the intervening time is I sat there and reviewed what we had done with all the minutes and the agendas that I had. And there were so many discussions that never went anywhere. And I think all of it is on our shoulders too. But much to our credit, I was very happy to see what the dynamics were today. And to me, this is as it should be. Yes, we picked up the fact that there was one item that wasn't carried over from the previous minute. But that's nothing compared to what I had read in other previous minutes. The continuity is starting to happen, which is good. Since 2015, there were 8 projects that were discussed and left. Policies, and I was on the policy committee earlier, and it has changed dramatically since Deborah came, as far as getting the work done. So the 13 that I'm talking about occurred BD for Deborah. Unresolved issues, there were 30 of them that we brought up for discussion, and no decision was made. Were they deferred? Were they, they were just floating. I just want to read you several sentences out of December 13, 2016 meeting. And it's important because we were talking about the strategic plan and all that, where we sit as a board. And this was actually from the comments from Haymaker. At last meeting, the board discussed whether the role was policy, governance, or operational. And so he put this agenda, and that was the November meeting, and then he put this back on the agenda. And it said, President Lynn noted the previous board had been too focused on operations and should have stepped back. The board should put together directions, not at the level of detail that was dived into previously, so the staff is not operating in a vacuum. Then we had another board member, Ken Urban, who came to us with a lot of experience from Wisconsin and operating a board. He shared with us a model he used on his committees, because the committees are they are the grunt workers, and they do the detail work, and they make the recommendations to the full board. Policy is the board's way of stating the direction it wants the organization to go and how to proceed. It is how the executive director executes the direction. And that was the key distinctions that were made. And of course, if the board is acting counter, it is up to the board. It is okay to call the board out, as this is not what is described. And likewise, if the director is ignoring the board's direction, they call on it. This is what we have set. This was a result of a number of discussions, and this is where we want to be as a board. And this was back in 2016, so this issue has been around for a while. I just think the committees have done such marvelous work, and we are doing the grunt work. This is very unlike it was when I started on the board. There were no committee notes, there was very little committee meetings, and so, obviously there's a degeneration of how the board was working. And it is important as a part of the role of the trustee to participate in all the areas, and this is what I saw happen today, because we started sending things out ahead of time, and we all came a lot more informed to the board, and that is why we had quality discussions today. And, you know, the committees strive to be, this is the other thing, committees strive to be complete and thorough in their work and send to the board what they have felt to be a resolution that's been created that's in the best interest of the library. A vote will occur requested by the committee because of this thorough understanding. And the thorough understanding comes from the trustees who have reviewed prior to. And that's why we're trying to increase the amount of information you get by emails. This is a phenomenal board because who we are today, and Barry can attest to it and I can attest to it, the prior board, we are just 180% different. And we have an incredible amount of pooled talent from a lot of different areas. We need to use that and continue to use that. We have a lot of work ahead of us, not just the budget and the remodeling and updating the strategic plan, but all the discussions that we had today. It's a thought process. The critical thinking we are doing today, we have to keep doing. And this is, I mean, I liked the minutes. I think that was a great job, Helen. It's just, we need that detail because what it is a mental jog. The minutes before were part of the problem because it didn't pull out the discussions and whether we voted on it, deferred it, etc. This is what we need to do, and that needs to be just not in my conscience, but it has to be in everybody's conscience. You know, are we going to defer this? What do we want to do? In other words, decisions made at every point in a discussion. What do we want to do? The library trustee's role is best understood when the trustees are being guided by industrial professionals on an ongoing basis, and I just was thrilled to see us actually vote on moving forward and picking somebody. I mean, we are so unique in our place in the community, and it demands our diligence. And that's all I have to say. See, this is what sitting at home, being able to do nothing means. Do too much thinking.
We're
So
so
I
glad
got it
that
off
you're
my
out and
chest.
about.
Pardon?
I'm so glad you're out and about.
Oh, I am too. I mean, he walked in yesterday with a big grin on his face and he says, "You want to drive?"
Congratulations.
So, anyway, I thank you for your attention.
And thank you for your comments.
Yes.
Yeah, and we can call our meeting officially adjourned.
I will make that motion.
Okay, it is 10 after 12.
We talked about committees, meetings
Yeah.
you want to do.
Yes.